All right. Little commercial here first. We'll skip that out. All right, everybody, welcome. Let me just start recording. That way we don't have that problem. Welcome everyone to Hash Church Sunday morning here, 9 a.m. on beautiful British Columbia's. Oh, there we go. That's not working on my ears, so I better fix that real quick. Got to disconnect that to get this connected, this, that, and the other thing. Just want to have these headphones or AirPods working, so apologies. Might have to put them away and put them back in my head so that they can reset. Apologies, everyone, for the technical difficulties. Let's see if I can't get that working now. There it is. All right. Here we are. Hope everyone's having a great day. As always, we'll start with our sponsors here real quick. I wasn't gonna put up the logo today, but I think I'm gonna do it a little bit differently today. So we're gonna start off with the Press Club. Elevate your solventless game at Hash Church with the Press Club's premium lineup of rosin extraction essentials, proudly supporting the community through top-tier tools that make clean, potent concentrates a breeze. From their legendary rosin bags, you can see the pink stitch in there, possibly. Yeah, from their legendary rosin bags with proprietary pink stitch and zero blowout guarantee for unbeatable durability and yield, to award-winning wash bags, premium parchment. How about that? Really nice premium parchment, 8 by 16, 100 sheets that come in right there. Pre-press molds, and the innovative Press Club rosin press for precise heat and pressure control. Whether you're crafting at home or scaling up, their ISO swab station and collection plates keep your setup spotless and efficient. Here, check that out. Ba-boom. So that's a cool little guy too. Whether you're crafting at home, right? Plates keep your setup spotless and efficient, all crafted with 100% food-grade dye-free nylon for contaminant-free results that preserve those precious terpenes. Join the Press Club in championing Hash Church by heading to thepressclub.co today and gear up for your next epic press. So check that stuff out. In the meantime, we're going to move on to the next group. Well, we've already elevated our session with the Press Club. Why don't we elevate it as well with at Hash Church with Puffco's cutting edge lineup, starting with the innovative Pivot. Yeah, this little guy right here. I use it all the time. It's unbelievable. It's my backup for if my battery dies. I always have it in my pocket. I almost always have it preloaded so I don't have to bother with that. So basically a pocket-sized dab pen that delivers the full rig experience on the go, featuring a quick release 3D chamber from premium flavor and time temperature control with 4 heat presets and haptic feedback. For epic group rips, if you want to get into a little more seriousness, dive into the Puffco Peak Pro, powered by the revolutionary 3D XL bowl technology that offers a 78% larger chamber for 2 times more vapor, even heating from the sides to preserve terpenes, and an XL joystick for fuller loads with less reclaim. And don't miss the new proxy. I unfortunately do not have the new proxy yet, but I still have my old one, and I actually love it. This is one that I wasn't a big fan of that I've really become a fan of. Do I hit it as often as these two? Absolutely not. But when I do hit it, it's super tasty and just awesome. So I'm looking forward to the new one. In the meantime, I'll be hitting this one. Don't miss out on the new proxy, however, the modular portable powerhouse with 4 precision heat settings, fast 90-minute charging, boost mode for intense hits, and an easy disassembly for seamless cleaning. Perfect for any adventure. Support Puffco's game-changing innovations by heading over to puffco.com or following at Puffco on Instagram today. I will also say, even though I don't have my bags, they're kind of behind me. You can see them hanging here and there. I'd love to have them in my hand as well. But as Mark Rose, my manufacturer, who's in the chat right now, happy birthday, Mark, happy 72nd birthday, has mentioned, Bubble bags stand out as the premier choice for water hash extraction, and it's no surprise why. We are the original innovators who set the standard for quality and performance. Crafted with durability in mind, our bags come with a lifetime warranty, ensuring you're covered for years of consistent use. The team behind Bubble Bags takes pride in our pioneering legacy, backing every product with unwavering confidence and a commitment to excellence, making us the trusted go-to for enthusiasts and professionals alike seeking top-tier hash extraction results. You can check us up at bubblebag.com. Hashchurch10 will give you a 10% discount with that code. So there it is. Thanks to all of the sponsors. And, usually by now, I'll have three or four people kind of waiting to get into the chat room, but that is not the case. I am alone. It is a lonely day over here. So I say we started off with a little puffy puff. Yeah. Comatose, champagne. Oh, let's go for Romulan. Let's hit up some Romulan from the Fraser Valley Rosin Boys. That's fraser.rosin.valley. No, fraser.valley.rosin3.o. That is their Instagram. You can check them out, and you can be puffing on what I'm puffing on, which is just some lovely, delicious, flavorful live hash rosin. All right. And welcome everyone in the chat room. I appreciate that you guys show up so early every day. We have a Discord chat that if you want to request the link for and you're in the chat, you can get that no problem. If you're watching, I'll put it in the description at the end of today's Hash Church, and we can kind of go from there. In the meantime, I hope everyone had a good week. It's been a long one. Lots going on in the world, particularly in the world of cannabis, which is the world that I live in. Yes, Romulan is a favorite. Now, I can't say, I mean, it's definitely very nice. I just don't know I have not seen anything other than a Romulan cross from about 20 years ago. It was a guy, he was called Rabbit something on Overgrown. It was the first time I'd seen Romulan and I knew Romulan very, very intimately. I haven't seen it in like 20 plus years. So there is that. Let's gear up, get your dab tools ready. If you guys are ready, I'm ready. I guess we should probably send out the odd invite if maybe Logan wants. See if Logan wants to pop in or maybe Dr. David Allen. My bad. I didn't send out the link again till yesterday night, which is a very late amount of time to give people. I did talk to Jody Emery, Jody Ramgias, sorry, Jody. And she's going to come on next week and she's going to come and share more information about her fair cannabis that she's doing. Oh yeah, Dabsylvania, I did. That's you, eh? You're JK or JK Rowling. Although I did find out that that was very unlikely her on the boat, that she rents it out for like, 40 weeks of the year or something. And I believe it's $1 million a week. He's harvesting Sam's seeds. Yeah, fuck, I'd love to have Robert on, man. Robert's tough to have on though because he doesn't have the know-how or knowledge, and he usually comes in on a phone, and he usually comes in on a phone in a field that doesn't quite have connectivity. So I would love for Robert to get his connectivity organized and together because yeah, he's awesome, man. He's a good homie. Aloha, Chiefs Nation. There we go. All right. Well, my dabber is very hot for 9 in the morning, but we're gonna go for it. I'm gonna let it cool a little bit. And what's up, Press Club? We just shouted you out. Look at that. There you are right there. The Press Club. Guess I should just put those like right there, shouldn't I? Shouldn't that be have a little Press Club little support? Although it did kind of work in our favor this way as well. Because I don't have a nail right now, but it still shows, eh? Just gave you guys a new shout out today. I rewrote the shout out today. So we are ripping, bro. Let's get this party started. All right. Man, I'll tell you, 5 years ago, I would have absolutely lost my mind if I came into Hash Church and no one was here. Today, I could do 4 hours by myself, no problem, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. All right, here we go. 540 for me, B-Rave. Hello, Tame. Yes, Diana, you are right. Robert's phone battery is always low, but that's okay because we love him. We support him with low or high. Oh, there we go. Anyway, what can I say? What can I say? I mean, all sorts of things going on in the world of cannabis and hashish. I'm sure that we'll see from Johnny B is traveling right now, actually. He is traveling. And as much as I love having Johnny B on, he's really delved, sorry, extremely deep into AI. And we don't have a lot of AI conversations on Hash Church. Um, I am the king of low batteries. Yes, Robert, you are the king of low batteries. I'll tell you something, Robert. You should get one of these. I got one. It was awesome. It's called a dashed. So you got a little button on the back here. You can put anything on top that is charged wirelessly, and it'll charge wirelessly. You can see now it just turned on when you saw the green flash. So now this unit is charging, which you can see on the back here. And anything that charges wirelessly will charge wirelessly on this little bad boy. Also, it's a magnet, which is pretty cool if you have to plug it into the wall. It's not a very strong magnet, but it is a magnet. It's got two cords, one for each type of phone, your iPhone or your, Android. And then it's got two spots to plug in. So you can charge five things at once with this thing, and it lasts. It is my travel, like the best travel tool. If you want to have a plug for Amsterdam, it's as simple as just sliding it right on like that and plugging it into the wall. You can charge everything while it's plugged. This is probably my favorite power bank that I have. I am not going to lie. All right. Yes, safe travels to Johnny B. He was out in Germany. I saw he was doing one of maybe the CAP CH Expo in Dortmund, which is crazy. That's one of the first places I went to Germany back in like the 90s when I would go to the cannabis business in Germany. And that would be where he went. He went for an Tony Robbins thing earlier in the I'm not sure exactly where. And then I saw like a couple of days later he was at this event. So yeah, hopefully he's back home. Oh, there he is right there, Johnny B. There he is right there doing his thing back from Germany. Funny enough, my daughter is also in Germany right now, or is in Germany, seeing as you're back home now. But yeah, I hope you had a good trip. Hope you got lots done in Dortmund. Always a good time well, that's not true. Dortmund is actually an industrial dump of a place. Not the best place that you would want to go and visit and hang out in, but nonetheless, pretty darn cool. Oh, maybe I'll invite my uncle in. I did one video with my uncle Gio some years ago. It was a live video at my mother's house, and unfortunately, that was one of the only videos I lost, if you can imagine, when I got my channel hacked and ta and taken away for I don't know how long it was. It must have been a couple of months that it was gone. Welcome, Baked Stoner from Scotland. Welcome, Dale McCabe. Good morning to you as well. And good morning to everyone, really. I remember Uncle Gio. Yes, Berlin and then Dortmund. Berlin's a pretty fun city, I'm not gonna lie. My daughter is in Munich right now. She's at a Oktoberfest event in Munich, Germany. traveling around, doing her thing. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. Just gonna send out a few more invitations. Although I'm sure if I just take a couple more rips, I'll be able to get it going. Get the gab, get the conversation going, laddies. Oh, good morning, Hash fam. VapCap JB. I want a hash shirt, t-shirt, or hoodie. I agree, Super Realm. It is way past due that I create some merch for Hash Church. Not to try and make a bunch of money, but just for us to have some merch for Hash Church. Really, truly for the people who would actually want to wear it. And I think it's a small group of us. I don't think it's we need to do a 10,000 hoodie batch by any means, but yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool to have a little hoodie or a t-shirt or something. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, Katian, she was in London the day that the big crazy protest happened with all those people. And then she went to Amsterdam, which was cool because I was able to send her to all my favorite spots. And yeah, now she's in Munich and she's got a bunch more countries she's going to go visit too. So good for her. Have fun if you're watching, Trinity. Ah, as a wedding cake. I still got my Bubble Man 5-gallon bucket. Does that count as merch? Absolutely. It's got to. It's got to. House church hoodie for the washroom. Yes, please. Yeah, exactly. That would be pretty good. Hash church hat pins. Remember when people wore hat pins? That's something I haven't seen in a while. I probably have a bunch of them because at one point in time, people were sending me those. Yeah, there's a Karma Cup one, a little Karma Cup one. And that's it, eh? I must have like put them all away because I remember having a lot of those pins, and I don't see any other than that one. Crazy. Oh, wait. There's another one. Camino something. There it is. Zipper. Good morning. Good morning. You have a hat pin on right now. Well, that tells us a lot about you, Bingo. Totally joking. I'm totally joking. Hash Church with one panelist, Bubble Man. Well, you know what? I got stories. I got stories. It would be great if my uncle came in. That would actually be pretty fucking cool. Oh, my grow never really worked out, Blockay. So I have one rule. My wife has one rule that if I have a grow, that I take care of it through and through. And I just can't do it. I just always end up having to leave. I can take care of it. I leave, I come back. That leaving really just destroys what I'm trying to do. I need to be there every minute of every day for it to be the way I want it to turn out. And if it's anything less than that, I'm just not as impressed. So I currently have about 6 plants out on my deck. They do not look good. They probably look the worst out of all the plants I have on my deck. In their defense, I have not given them the same energy as I've given my plants that are my other plants, both in my house, which I have a lot, and outside of my house, which I have even more. So I've been taking the best kind of care that I can. But oh, I haven't talked to Cuban in years, Isika. I doubt that he would come on. He was pretty upset. I kicked him out of chat years ago because he was being a bit of a bully, and I just kind of was like put him in a timeout, and he got very upset about being put in. He said to someone, "Don't you know who I am?" Which is the classic thing not to say, no matter where you are. Yes, John, you absolutely have to feed them. I've been giving mine water, and they're alive. They're blooming. I'll make hash out of them. We'll see if that hash is going to be as melty as I would like it to be. But with how much I travel around, especially with this new Canadian Quebec thing that I'm doing, I'm not really in a position to have a grow. I will say also that the tents are taking up the very place that my home gym needs to be. So I suspect the tents are going to find themselves. Oh, I bet they look like shit, John. Fuck, you've been away for a week, dude. How the hell are you gonna care for plants when you've been away for a whole week? That's insane. That is insane. All right. All right, Buffalo. Tell us about your trip to Germany. Oh, 3 weeks, dude. Oh my God. I told him to market it better, but he got mad. Now everyone copied him. Who's that, Dirty? Who's SBM? SBNV, Get Pinnacle Systems. I don't even know who SBN is. But apparently they don't like me, and that's okay, because I can see people not liking me. I can accept that. It happens. It's crazy, especially at events where you're trying to be so nice and you're trying to like be supportive. I just realized how red my chin is from shaving yesterday. Wow. At least it's not all full of blood. Skunkman Sam's session story. Oh my God. The proudest I ever was smoking with Skunkman Sam, we were in Jamaica. And at this point in time, Sam was at a point in his life where I didn't tell anyone I invented bubble. I said that I coined the term bubble hash. This is correct. This is not a lie. It doesn't mean that I invented bubble. I myself have told the history of water extraction 1,000 times. I play a part in it. I'm definitely a pioneer in popularizing it. But there were many, many, many people involved, including Acme, including Eldon, including Mila, including Reinhardt, including Neville, including Skunkman Sam and Rob Clark, including the Unknown American, and probably many, many, many others. Yeah, well, then show us the screen recording of it, Closet Grower, because what I say is that I coined the term bubble hash. I don't say that I invented bubble. And if you have a screen recording of me saying that I invented bubble, I find that hard to believe, but if you do, I it's not true. I did not invent bubble. I've been saying this for many, many, many years, and truly. Oh, there you go. Bingo Lombardi created the bags before Eldon. Anyway, in Fruitful Discord. Okay, well, post it in our Discord, Closet Grower. I can't tell if you're trying to stir the shit or what, but I'm open to it. I definitely did not invent water extraction. Bubble bags, that was, yeah, I came up with the term bubble bags. I worked with Acme to manufacture the bags. He also manufactured the isolator bags and he named the isolator bags, and Eldon invented the isolator bags. So, yeah, I guess so, Joshua. It's just kind of crazy that people can't kind of get the story. It's really not hard oh yeah, stir in the hash water. I like that. It's not that hard to figure out and understand. It's easy enough to sort of follow through. I mean, I get with stories you can believe something that's not true accidentally, but it's no, I didn't steal bubble bags. Wow, this guy's really got it wrong. At least I know how wrong he has. So Reinhardt and I ended up being quite well. So Reinhardt originally sued Mila, and then Mila told Reinhardt, "Oh, listen, I'm barely selling any bags. You should go sue this kid in Canada. He's selling millions of dollars in bags." That's how Reinhardt got on my radar, or how I got on his radar. Anyway, I did end up in a lawsuit with Reinhardt, and this is how I found the true history, to be honest, Closet Grower. So if you would like to hear the true history, and I paid lawyers a lot of money to learn this history. It was called, like it was not disclosure, but what it was basically the investigation that I did for the lawsuit. And I will be honest, when Reinhardt came at me, I didn't really know his part in all of this. It took me years and a lot of money to follow the story back to how water extraction happened. So, how most people think it happened was that Mila just invented the bags and started selling them. That's how I myself was under the impression. And I bought or traded or acquired Mila's bags very early on, probably in 98, the year she started selling them. I had no idea about Mark Rose. I had no idea about Eldon. I had no idea about Reinhardt's machine. I had no idea about Skunkman Sam's water extraction, Sadhu Sam's water extraction in the High Times magazine in 1988. And I had no idea about Neville and the Unknown American. Um, I managed to go through the whole history. So in 90, I must have met Mila in 95, maybe later. Definitely 97, 98. And yes, exactly. Diana knows better than most that he suggested cold water instead of ice. This was a very important factor because Reinhardt's patent needed to, there's two ways to void, well, there's one major way to void a patent, and that is if the patent has been previously published. But Sam and Rob didn't previously publish that information. What they did instead was they put an ad in High Times saying if you sent them $10, they would send you the instructions on how to make water hash. So then the argument became, is this previously published? Well, public people can acquire the information, but all we had was proof of the ad. We didn't have any letters with payment proving that instructions were sent out. So my lawyers needed that. Another thing was that, well, previously published is the major one. That's the one that messes everyone up. The other thing is with a patent, even if something is known or patented, even beyond published, patented, if you change it enough, i.e., novelty is what they call it in the patent application process. If you have a high enough percentage of novelty, and I think it requires to be 20% different, you can get a patent on something that kind of already exists, but you've changed and made it better. And so this is where Reinhardt was coming in with the ice, because using the ice was pretty important. Now, he said with his ice extraction that it would be between 4 and 12 degrees Celsius or whatever it was in Fahrenheit. And so that opened a little, because you don't want to go too broad. You can't just go -80 to +80. Too broad also voids patents. So I ended up getting into this kind of thing, and the lawyers, I had these crazy lawyers, and I mean, listen, my business was doing super good. I worked super hard to build the business, and suddenly I felt like, wow, this guy's just trying to come take it away. Who the fuck does he think he is? Well, as I spent my own money on lawyers and I went through the story, first I learned through Acme, happy 72nd birthday, Acme, that he told me the story. He's like, listen, and how I even met Acme was that he was trying to make bags for Mila. They were supposed to be partners, and he was suspicious that bags were being made outside of where he was, so business that he wasn't getting. And in fact, he was correct. And he ended up reaching out to me, and that's how we linked up. He saw me online posting, and so I got yes, exactly, Diana. Sam just wanted to spread information. He had his hands in everything in that sense, and Sam truly was one of the ultimate, pioneers of all of these different things. Because had I not, kind of been inspired. Well, Sam was a big part of it. And I never really spoke to Reinhardt about his influence from Sam or how he came up with it, which is kind of crazy that I never asked him that. But we became friends through the lawsuit. And once I had spent all this money on lawyers, I finally pushed the lawyers to the side and I started talking to Reinhardt. And Reinhardt also told me the story of going to Mila's apartment and setting up the machine in 97 at the Cannabis Cup and having her sign a little, unit, a little NDA and say, okay, I'm going to show you this unit. She showed that unit. Probably one of the first groups of people she showed that unit to was to Mark Rose and Eldon. They were sitting on her couch one day and they watched the process. And Eldon nonchalantly says 2 5-gallon shaped bags with screen bottoms in a 5-gallon bucket. and you've got the same thing. Mark Rose is sitting next to him. He's coming up with a cool name. Wow, we're isolating. We're isolating. It's the isolator. It's the isolator. He comes up with the name. He manufactures them. Eldon invents them. Mila sells them. So there it is. Those people all played an important role, as did Reinhardt. When I learned that Reinhardt's machine was how the bags got invented, I paid him 6 figures out of the lawsuit. We fired the lawyers and we finished it off, and I paid him 6 figures. And that is a fact. I was one of very few companies in the bag world that paid money. Jason from Payload paid, Lucy from Triple Extractor paid. No one else paid. Reinhardt, for all of you that are so upset that that the bubble bags ripped off the isolator bags, you should really look at the fact that the bags ripped off the Reinhardt machine. And that's what I paid for. I paid him a fee indefinitely into the future and into the past, a number that he was happy with, that saw him get paid. And for 25 years, I've been taking scuff, like in my own chat, people coming and telling me I stole shit and I ripped off. And it's like, yes, I absolutely played a part in copying the isolator bags and making them better. Imagine the guitar gets invented, so no one's allowed to invent the electric guitar. She would have kept 2 bags indefinitely. She smoked hash with tobacco. I am a connoisseur of high-end hash. My pathway was just as important as hers, and I didn't steal to get there. I have my integrity. I paid he might have, Diana, but not to me in person. And I spoke with all these people. Now I also spoke with Neville back some years ago, and I asked him about it as well. And he also told me that it was an unknown American from California, which is exactly what Sam told me, that had told him that resin was heavier and dense and sinks in water while everything else floats. That is what got Sam and Rob to do the Sadhu Sam's water extraction high times thing. And you can just see that it's all about timing. It's all about timing. Listen, it's very important no matter how much. Listen, at one point in time, I did the wrong thing. There's no doubt about it. And I paid for that immensely. I paid for that immensely. And I think what I brought to the community was certainly not just about trying to make money from the community, but showing that this is my passion. I have a passion for the hash, and anyone that's ever met me will tell you that. And it's literally how I met Skunkman Sam. I don't think he would have reached out to me had I not been the person that I have been. And you can, ask Diana, who's in the chat room right now. When Sam showed me that dry sift technique, I never showed a soul. I kept that to my chest because he asked me to. So I do have integrity. And yeah. Well, say yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's very possible. I wasn't there. You definitely were. The stories that they both told me, though, that they talked to Neville in the mid 80s about it, and it was 1988 when they took the ad out in High Times, like 3 or 4 years later. But yes, Delp did patent it. Delp had a patent. That was the bottom line. That's how this all came to be. If you want to do things correctly and invent, you would not believe how many things in the world you're currently supporting that the person who's selling didn't invent. It's a guarantee. So Delp patented it. He was the one that protected it, and I'm really glad that it finished out the way it finished out with myself and Delp, because he was going through all sorts of other things in his life that the High Times magazine article was in 1988. Yes, I can ask Brock for you. What year did Sadhu Sam's water extraction ad show up in High Times? Wouldn't that be cool if it answers us accurately, Diana? I could be mixing up my own. No, because mine was not. No. 87. 87. Sadhu Sam, also known as Skunkman Sam, a pioneering California cannabis enthusiast, ran an advertisement in High Times magazine in 1987 offering instructions for making cold water extracts at home. This ad introduced the ice water extraction method to a wider audience where trichome glands sink in cold water while plant debris floats. Revolutionizing solventless hash production in the 80s underground scene. Dude, Sam is the man. I miss him. I really do. I miss oh, that's amazing, Diana. 1980. So there it is, going back even further. I miss the stories and I miss hearing his voice and I miss Wade as well. Wade and Sam, you are both so greatly missed. Thank you for making your mark on the world and leaving it with us because my goodness, you both touched me indefinitely forever. I will never not be affected by having you both in my life, and I feel blessed for it. I really do. Oh my goodness. You need to get Remo on and talk about the grow chamber that was wheeled into the courtroom. Oh, okay. Yeah, I do need to get Remo on. Maybe I've also been talking to Marble Slinger and he wants to come and do kind of a one-on-one interview, but also do a curated glass church. So we'll see if we can make that happen here in the near future. So yeah, good little history on water extraction. I don't know if that if he wanted to acknowledge that. Yeah, I can only imagine how much stuff you have to go through there, Diana. My goodness, it's oof, it's incredible. And my daughter was just in Amsterdam and had an amazing time, by the way. She was sending me some great pictures. I sent her to all my favorite restaurants and uh, you know, coffee shops and whatnot. She went to some good museums and yeah, just had a really good time. Yeah, I could get Remo. I mean, he's around. I don't know if I could get him like last minute. Um, but you never know. You never know. Sometimes it can work out like that. Let's see. There we go. You know what? I'm kind of enjoying this though. I like the natural solo hash church. I mean, I'll welcome Colin for sure, but at the same time, it's been nice just talking to myself for the last 35 minutes, dude. I just told the whole water extraction history. I had someone come in and kind of like say that I said I invented bubble and say that I like stole the bat. I don't know. It was just like oh, that I
Yeah.
went to some Reinhardt thing and stole. Yeah, I don't like when the history gets mixed because it's like, did I copy the isolator bags? 100%. 100%. No one's denying that. Did the isolator bags copy Reinhardt Delp's machine? 100%. Nobody's denying that. Does it go back before Reinhardt's machine? 100%. Absolutely it does. Did anyone else patent it? No. Yes, I was there too, James, many, many, many times. But I've been, listen, since day
I'm
one.
gonna get in the chat in the YouTube. I can't see the conversation, but like, yeah, we gotta. All right, let's just
100%.
let's reel it back.
Did anyone else patent it?
Let's reel it back
No.
and let's talk for
Yes,
real.
I was there too, James, many, many, many times. Is that yours? I've been, listen,
That's me, dude. Sorry, I had the lag from the YouTube. It was my fault. So
that's okay,
my bad.
brother.
But look, James, whoever you are, let's talk real. I was
It
also
wasn't James. James was the one that said he saw Mila stand up in front of a crowd in Amsterdam and say she invented the bags. So we know is not true. What is true is that I did not say that I invented the bags, although this guy says he has a video of me saying I did in some Discord. I told him to post it in my Discord, but I
yeah.
didn't see it. But it is what it is. I
Yeah.
think I told the history pretty good. I've never tried to write my history in differently. You know, Mila played a hugely important part. I would never take that away from her. But so did I. I played an important part too, and it wasn't all about like ripping off Mila. In fact, I would say that the majority of my business that I've been doing has been with Mark Rose, who started his business with Mila. So it's kind of a very close family, the water extraction world. I mean, now we have all sorts of companies, right? You have all sorts of companies, including the Press Club, that make these products. And thank God for it. You know, you got to be able to shop with your dollars, support the companies that you want to, and people that don't want to kind of focus, or people that do want to focus on the division. I mean, I sell bubble bags, and every week I promote and read off the Press Club because they're a sponsor and promote Hash Church. Like, why would I say you guys can't sponsor Hash Church? You sell a product like me, it's like, yeah, they sell a great product. People love their products. Why wouldn't I want to collaborate with them? We're doing the same things. So we've come a long way. It is a very strange things with bags, how people were like, there were these two sides that were so just like isolator, bubble bags. And all I was trying to do was make everything better. And then all they were trying to do was say, hey, this guy clearly doesn't know what he's doing. He needs 8 bags to do what we're doing with two. I'll never forget that quote because that quote blew my mind. That quote made me feel like, oh my God, I'm actually doing important work here because, and then Joe Petrie came out and wrote the skating article. That was before the Reinhardt um, lawsuit. And how the Reinhardt lawsuit really happened was Joe Petrie started fanning the flames and writing those articles. And it was actually an honor because up until that point, only Sam was being called a CIA agent and a DEA agent and all these heinous lies. But in those articles, he called both me and Sam out. And in fact, I think one of his quotes was, and Bubble Man, a creation of Skunk Man Sam, which Sam and I laughed about for years afterwards. And you guys can hear Sam's sarcastic, dry humor saying, well, I created the Bubble Man. And we would laugh at that because it was just so ridiculous. And you can only imagine how amazing it is from the perspective of the people who know the truth, how wild it is, some of the stories y'all come up with in this world, because it kind of also makes you feel a little fearful of delusions, because people become like militant in their belief of like, this is what happened. I know it for a fact. And when I first met Diana, over at Sam's, she started opening up slowly to me about some of the stories and just telling me things that only she could know. And I was like, and chuckling about how absolutely wrong they were getting it, just absolutely beyond wrong, which is, it is what it is. I always like Chimera. I always took great offense to it, more like of a protection. Like I didn't like when people did that, but when we got written about in the article, and after Marco Renda posted that article, Sam hired some girls to pie him in the face with plates full of whipped cream, which you can do in Europe without getting an assault charge. I think if you throw like water or like wine, or I think you can get in trouble for almost anything. But for whatever reason, if it's a plate full of whipped cream, there's, I don't know if it's a pie law. I just remember him being very like, I'm doing this. And I believe Diana filmed it. And then I believe I filmed the back of her phone or camera, sorry, and posted that on Kick, which was a live streaming it was a live streaming program, one of the first ones, QIK. And I remember that same year, if you're watching, Diana, I did a bunch of those live kicks and I was sleeping that night at the Krasnopolsky Hotel. It was 4 in the morning. I had a big meeting the next day at 9 a.m. and my phone company called me and said, you have an outstanding phone bill of $6,143. And we're going to need a payment, otherwise it's going to have to get turned off. And I said, what's the payment? And he was like 6,137. Like the payment was the exact amount of the phone bill. And they had let me roam. I didn't realize I was roaming on my home phone number while streaming live, dude. It was
That'll get
$6,000.
you, man. And then they'll hold you to that, right?
Well, I paid
But
it. I paid it right there because I needed my phone. I was in Amsterdam and I had no other way of communicating with people. And
oh,
so I paid it and then I came home and somehow some group found out about this. And you'll laugh at this, dude, because it's actually pretty fucking funny. It was a TV show and they were like, we heard you got this really bad cell phone bill. Like, how much was it for? And I said, it was $6,000. And they said, oh, great. You can be our number two. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we have one guy whose kid was playing like video games and buying coins and got his up to $25,000 in Mexico. But he said, but you're the second highest one. It went from 25,000 to 6,000 to like some other amount. And it was a show on most expensive cell phone bills in Canada. And so they sent me this email and I just copied and pasted it and sent it to Rogers. And I said, look, I'm gonna probably go on this TV show unless you guys want to, figure this out. And they gave me all that money back, the whole 100% of it.
Wow,
And then
that's
I didn't
great.
get to be on the show.
Hey man, at least you got it worked out, bro, and you don't have to endure that cost. But yeah, dude, there's always going to be people with history that sort of mix things up, and I see this often, specifically with some of the things that you've been posting over the years, and I think people lose sight of what is real and what is kind of fabricated, and I think that's where we have to you have to speak up, like you are now. You have to say, look, I understand you have truth and you believe that X, Y, and Z happened, but there was a lot of things that you don't understand that weren't, brought to light. So I think it's important, those that are listening, to understand that Marcus is put beyond time and time and time and time and time into this. And it's as authentic as it's gonna get. I mean, I'm just gonna be real with everybody here. And I don't believe that coming in and bringing the negativity to a conversation like that is necessary. So just think about these things when you are told that, oh, he stole this from that, because guys, we're like 30 years into this. Like I
It did
just
give
can't,
me a nice opportunity to tell the story again. I will say that. And
like, dude, we're 30 years in. Like, come on. So
it's
I'll leave it
true.
there and, respect one another and we'll respect it too.
Yeah, hash wars. It's true. It's just the way it is. Just the way people are. I'm not trying to sweat it at all, David Zimmerman, and I appreciate the positivity. Discord is a bit of a shit show, but we have one. And if anyone wants to post anything and have any conversations, for the most part, it's true. I feel where Colin's coming from in the sense of like, it is a weird thing, especially I'm in the room by myself. I'm now having to like think about my own dialogue. In fact, fucking monologue that I'm gonna have to do for however long. It's like, all right, Sunday morning, I've been up for like 25 minutes. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's just talk for 35 minutes. And then I'm also, you guys might not realize this, but getting super baked, running a podcast, and watching you guys chat and keeping an eye on everything that's said so I can get an idea of the vibe that's happening in the room. It's always weird when people post things, but you can't tell if they're passive aggressive or if it's like, if it's dramatic or what it is. And you don't want to, kind of have the wrong, you know, make the wrong judgment call and snap on someone, which I have done many, many times. Um, Oh,
Yeah.
SBNV guy. All right. Well, geez, sorry, SBNV, if we hurt your feelings, got your panties in a twist, but
We hurt feelings.
yeah.
Over,
And Andrew
over.
says it was good to hear the truth from you, Marcus, instead of someone else haphazardly spilling stuff on the internet. We all have our truths, and it is my truth, and I made sure that my truth was the court's truth. I made sure my truth came from the horse's mouth. All of the people that I mentioned, I spoke to personally. Got it on like paper, documented, right? This whole story. It cost me tens of thousands of dollars to write and find this history. And the history that I found cost me even more. So it's not like I was burying what I found. Whatever I found, wherever I was led, when I found out that the bags were made from Reinhardt's machine, regardless of how long it had existed before, I knew that for me, I owed him money. I needed to pay him money because we did a lot of bag sales and we wouldn't have had the bags if it wasn't for that machine.
No doubt. Yeah, and
Hash Wars, the bubble bag documentary. I like that. Who wants to do that?
I I think we should do it. We should do a documentary on, because like I was just thinking in my head as you were talking, I was like, when we were doing Overgrow and it was all just that, I could really count the guys on my hands. Like for real. In a real way. Like, yeah, there's people that had sets, but like those that really were in hash, it was a real small crew. And I just don't remember a lot of these names that are out there that say they were there. And that's okay, because that's just my truth, right? And like there's so many pockets is what I'm getting at, and you can't know it all. And you
Well,
can't know.
and there's value, as we know in the cannabis industry, for some. It's not
Yep.
my kind of value, but there is value in rewriting the history. If people rewrite the history, it can work out in their favor. It can be like, oh, no, I created that cultivar. No, no, I did that. I'm the guy. I'm that. Well, it's like, listen, we're all a part of a bigger thing. And depending on the decisions you made and how you went about doing it is going to be how it plays out. I know that I'm still doing what I've been doing for 28 years or whatever it's been so far. And I don't have any intention on stopping. I love the idea of having my brand out there now in these different states and in Canada. And
Yeah.
I just love the idea of doing this pretty much for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's my passion, right? It's what I'm kind of trying to teach my kids, like sometimes if you don't know what your passion is, a really good way to find out what your passion is which I've just been explaining to my eldest son,
Yep.
is to work a bunch of shitty jobs. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
don't think you're going to get the best job in the world. Go work some shitty jobs because those shitty jobs will direct you away from what you don't like. And sometimes the only way to find what you do like is by being directed away from what you don't like. And what you don't like for whatever reason sometimes seems easier to find when you're young. So that's the
Yeah,
advice I gave
dude,
him.
I think that's such a great lesson because I know I learned that firsthand. I remember I was like 15. I was making sandwiches as a job. And dude, I just hated it. I was like, what am I doing? And then that same summer, I started growing cannabis. And then I had sold my first pound. And I was like, dude, what am I even doing over there? And it showed me, just like you're saying, dude, because you can spend the same amount of time doing pretty much anything, but what are you going to get out of that, right? From a spiritual point of view and a universal point of view. So,
Yeah.
to your point, it's about spending the time on the things that you are passionate about and finding those things. And sometimes it takes longer than others. Some are faster, some are slower, but as long as you work on it, because you're living proof of that, man, you know? And I also feel lucky enough to say that as well. You do what you love, and it's something that takes a lot of time to focus on, but I think it's really important that those are out there that like, I don't know what I want to do. Well, you're already doing it. You just have to figure out a way to monetize it. So, so that's the kind of thing I think you're so right on about. But yeah, I mean, I was just building a greenhouse with my son, you know.
Wicked.
I lost track of time. That's why I'm late. I
That's
was
what's
like
up.
I was just trying to like teach them about, like I don't want to do this, but they need this and these things need to go inside of this. And we were just started, just cranking bolts and it's like a big Lego set. So
Yeah,
you
totally.
know,
Well, that's awesome, dude. I love that
yeah.
you're building a greenhouse. I'm jealous. I want to put a greenhouse behind my place here really soon.
Yeah, dude, I've been putting it off. I got it like months ago and I just was like, I don't know. Do I want to set this thing? I was like, you know what? If I don't set it up, I'm gonna be really mad I didn't.
Right?
So I just went and did
Exactly.
it today. Started super
Dude,
early.
I need a greenhouse just to propagate the plants that my property requires annually.
I bet, dude. I mean, you have such a unique environment up there. I mean, you know, you have a beautiful property. I mean, it's super cool. Um, I'd love to see a greenhouse out back there, man. You know,
Me
that would be
too.
that would be sick.
I would be
Like
mucho happy with
front
that.
deck.
But you know what? I'm grateful to just have what I have. There's a lot of work back there. There's trees back there that are all kind of leaning off a cliff towards my house, and they're like 30 footers. They would dent my eaves troughs at most because the tips are quite thin. But I guarantee you, if I went and cut them, every one of them would hit my house. And I'm not sure why that is. It's very hard to cut a tree I mean, I've even taken my pole saw and like cut the branches that are facing my house because
Yep.
getting rid of that weight really like affects how the tree, but it's just got the slightest lean that even when I cut it the right way and I want it to fall the other way, it just eventually, I cut one and it hit my eaves trough and dented.
Yeah, because if you cut it on the angle, it could slip down and just go, boop, you know? Yeah, yeah. But dude, yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But yeah, it's I've been growing. I this year I popped a bunch of stuff from counterculture that was a bunch of OZKB times Z crosses, and those that have grown counterculture stuff, and it's kind of hard to get, but if you get it, it's the magic. I mean, some really, really amazing hash making cultivars that I found throughout his lots. I mean, it's pretty
Nice.
impressive. Like every lot has some extreme gold in it. It's kind of awesome. It's really, really cool to see. Usually
I
I'll
like the sound of that.
Yeah, usually have to hunt like, I don't know, multiple packs to even find anything to even want to keep. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm gonna hit this rainbow marker.
Oh yeah, I gotta get my carb cap. I'll be right back. I'm gonna hit this I have this really amazing sativa.
Get it, get it. Super mellow Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little bit lazy. I got to get off my ass and curate these shows that I keep promising. So, like I said, Jody Emery will be on next week, and we'll go in through her fair cannabis that she's doing. And I will have Slinger on as well, maybe next week, and or the week after. See how that goes.
Those that
Ooh,
wanted the paper that I showed last week about using trichoderma, feel free to DM me or whatever. I did give it over to Heavy RX, Heavy Ice RX, and a couple other people. So if you're looking for it, let me know. It's definitely something everybody should be paying attention to. Should pretty much be a part of your IPM or your scheduling at this point. Fusarium,
noise.
trichoderma, battle. Going.
All right, let's hit the Puffco. Oh, little root shield. What are you puffing on over there?
So I got some, not the sour taffy. I've got some chocolate oranges, number 25 from 710 Labs left. This is like my last little bit left over from what they had given me when I went to Cali. And super good, like super good. I mentioned to them that this should be put into like a portable. It's mint chocolate chip times Orange Valley OG, which is insane because it's just super terpene. Um, has a little of CBD in it, 1.59 milligrams, but really good water hash from, I mean, it's like oil, you know, it's just big clump. Um,
Nice.
they do a great job. Those guys really, and they're good guys. Really like them.
People are always surprised when I hit my Puffco without water.
Oh,
I
it's
will
a,
say there are times that I want to hit it with water. There really are. I want that chug, I want that pull. But right now, after being like ripped off my actual rig, this is just nice flavors. That being said, my rig does have water in it.
hmm.
But man, I don't know how many puffs I am into this particular Peak Pro, but it has been flawless for me. And I travel with it a lot. I always find that the travel aspect of these pipes being electronics, it really like if they're not built properly, and I think Puffco had to learn that, by just the R&D and
Yep.
it's such a hard it's such a likely piece of electronics that the user themselves will break. And it's kind of an integrity thing because, they drop it and then they don't want to say anything. And it's like, then they forget about it. And then they're like, oh, it's weird. It's not working anymore. Piece of shit, fucking bad company. They're not, it's like, I can only imagine, guaranteed there's a percentage of these things from the factory that there's going to be a percentage that the battery fails, the whatever. There's an electronic percentage
I,
failure. I bet you it's a fraction of the
dude,
personal error that people
I,
do.
I have one that it's on me to send back to them, but they probably sent me a return slip like 6 months ago. But I've beaten the thing down. Like I took the thing everywhere. I used it at Legends instead of bringing my rig. I mean, I said that. I was like, I remember getting the XL in the mail like the night before I was flying out.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, let me just try this thing. I'm interested before bed. And I was like, yo, this thing's hitting. And then I got into the temperature settings and I was like, damn, this is like, I'm like looking at my Pelican case and I'm like, I'm just like, it went out with the Puffco. And I'm happy I did. It was really helpful. And I just used a little battery bank to keep me charged and it was really nice. It was really good. I mean, I've not had a good luck with really any other brand, to be honest. I'll be real. Like I've tried, like yourself, probably everything out there. I'm not gonna name names, but it's either actually had a real flaw or like the technology didn't work right or the atomizer didn't fire off or something. That was a big one for me on another device. Um, with Puffco, I didn't really experience that until I personally overused the device and just there's probably so much reclaim in there right now that it's why it doesn't work right. And I think over time, I don't know what you can really do about something like that because it's in oil, but they are flawless machines. Like yeah, I'm even having problems with the proxy, but like I reached out to them and they're just like, yeah, send it in, like super easy. Um, you know. I like that, but I do like my rigs. But it's definitely more convenient for me to have an electronic rig that I can just kind of port around. You know, I mean,
It has its place. They all have their place. I'm quite happy that the world of dabbing has been. I mean, listen, it was 15 years ago. You'd have been hitting the full melt off the cigarette lighter in the car. Like there was, or carrying Pelican cases with blow torches and like all of this shit. It just got so ridiculous that it's actually like it's too bad our industry isn't bigger because I would love to see the South Park rip on our culture. But we're such a minority niche. We're so tiny that we're not even almost really worth it. But man, would it be good, dude. They would do such a good rip on our entire scene, especially like, I just love to see them rip on legends, like rip on a Legends of Hash. Like, who the fuck are these guys? Like,
no,
it's awesome.
100%. But I mean, I feel like that's what South Park did a little of that with Tegrity. They just didn't go all the way, you know. They've been
Yeah,
uh they've been doing that, but
they
yeah,
sure
no.
have. They got integrity, Colin. They got integrity.
They got Tegrity, but those guys also invest in cannabis brands. Like they're invested in a retail store in New York City, you
Right.
know? So like they are in the space.
Oh, I suspect they're in many, many spaces.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, one thing I think, the industry needs is more less competitions and more events that are celebrating the plan itself. I think we've really centered this thing around like let's get together for a competition. And I think Legends is like a really amazing example of how that can work in tangent with one another. But it seems like it's most other events don't because you had this like food and there was more than just, you know, just a contest. So I really think I'd love to see more experiential stuff for music and art and yeah, like let's bring cannabis into it, but like let's go have other things to do. Um, like I think that's where I'd love to see another Legends come back, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, if there's another Legends, it'll be to celebrate Sam.
Yeah, definitely do one. Mark. What's up, Mark?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, man.
Oh, are you out on the deck?
Yeah,
Is it
it's
the 4th
too
of
nice.
July?
No, it's definitely September,
Jesus.
Here here in Vermont, you can see here in the Champlain Valley, leaves haven't really turned. But up on the mountains, oh my God, it's like peak foliage. Not quite peak, maybe a week before peak.
It's been
Well,
dry out.
welcome, buddy.
Doing well. Hold on, I'm out here with the animals here.
Oh, yes, the animals. The animals.
And the
I
cat
like
who
the
just got out.
animals.
Hold on.
Oh,
Get
cats
this.
and dogs, cats and dogs. It's good to have cats and dogs. They're both such different vibes. And it's funny how you see a lot of people are like, I'm a dog person, I'm a cat person. I'm like, really? I'm both.
Yeah.
I want them both in the house and I want to see them interact and I want to watch the cat dominate the dog.
It's the best. It's the
It's
truth.
so funny. It's so funny, dude. Dogs are amazing creatures, man. They know. They're just like, listen. They learn it. It's like, what do they call it? Like internal genetic memory.
Yeah.
They're like, don't fuck with cats. Don't like fuck with cats.
Yeah. No, definitely don't.
What's
So,
going on? What in the world, guys?
we're just kind of just shooting the shit, blowing around. But I had a question for you.
Yes.
In terms of extraction methods with solvents, and in lipids. Like, okay, so when we extract with ice and water, we bring the whole train over, like everything comes, right? And with a solvent-based extraction, you have a selective process, right? You're selecting certain things that come and refining those out that, you find undesirable, right? Is there any point where in a solvent-based extraction where you would want to keep any of the fats?
Uh, for making a dabbable product?
For just any, yeah, like let's say dabbable or even vapable.
Well, fats don't vaporize cleanly like terps and cannabinoids, right? And so they thermally decompose, right? So I mean, I don't know. I mean, uh, why
Mhm.
would you want fats in something that you're putting on a nail? No, it's just gonna create crud on the nail. And yeah, I mean, it's just if you want something that's going to be completely vaporized and not leave any crud behind, then yeah, you don't want any fats because they're too high in molecular weight to boil. So what they do when they get heated up in the presence of air, which has got oxygen in it, they thermally decompose, and that's like it happens for fats at different temperatures. That's called the smoke point of the fat, and it really depends on how much unsaturation there is. There's quite a bit of unsaturated fats in cannabis extract, so those things will start thermally
I'm gonna
decomposing, and
grab some
yeah,
fat in
that'll
my
give
bag I
you
got on
just
my hands.
noxious chemicals in your vape, which is not good, right? Unless you're looking for that. But
Well,
Unless
for
you're
for
looking for
for
that.
edibles, I mean, certainly. So, like Marcus, did we cover this on Hash Church? I can't remember if we did. I mean, there was a new set of compounds that were isolated from leaves. Did we talk about that? I don't
I
think so.
don't
Maybe not.
know.
I don't think we
Yeah,
have. So,
yeah. So I think I covered this on High at Nine uh, News, and excuse me for having a senior moment. Being on the internet talking about it, but yeah. So there's this paper that came out maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago that isolated new compounds, a new class of compounds called flavoalkaloids. So they look like flavonoids, but because they have a nitrogen in them, they become, part of the broad class of compounds that we call alkaloids, right? Like nitrogen containing compounds like what's in mescaline and cocaine and things like that. Those are typically termed alkaloids, right? Alkaloids have a nitrogen in them. So what they found, Colin, it was really cool too, because I learned a whole lot by reading the paper, is they use this hydrophilic interactive chromatography, which is changing the polarity of your support to basically be more attractive for the hydrophilic as opposed to the hydrophobic
Right.
components. And so what they did is they took extracts of leaves. So they probably had trichomes to some extent, but this is mostly like what you would get out of juicing whole cannabis flower or leaves. And what they found, again, just in very trace amounts, so this is, something that they really know of in terms of like how much of the materials, but they identified these flavonoid kind of molecules that had a nitrogen in them. So they're kind of like a new class of what they call flavoalkaloids. And they further demonstrated that they're active. I think it was against some cancer cell line. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at the paper. But there's again a benefit of juicing whole cannabis or consuming raw cannabis because you're going to get that if you. So these obviously these kinds of compounds are going to thermally degrade. So when you smoke flower, it's not like you're getting a dose of these compounds because they'll thermally degrade into some other shit.
Right.
But ultimately, if you're juicing cannabis, and this again speaks to the aspect that cannabis is a nutraceutical because it provides these compounds that are nutritious that can, maybe prophylactically in a way kind of keep your body free of cancer. The other
Right.
thing I'll say, just, thinking about this is that, man, I mean, like they tried to regulate cannabis through the dietary supplement mechanism that the Food and Drug Administration has, right? So the folks like Marcel Baumiller and those other folks, basically generated enough clinical data to show the efficacy of CBD. I forget exactly what they were looking at, probably epilepsy, I would assume. And they brought this to the FDA and said, okay, this is how you have to regulate cannabis. It's not a single active ingredient, there's multiple active ingredients, and not the same preparations are going to be uniformly effective in certain patients. You got to kind of like fish around for that right strain or that right ratio or whatever. And the FDA turned it down because, again, you got to remember that there's this revolving door between FDA and big pharmaceuticals that the government agency that's in place to basically regulate this industry is populated with people who used to work in that same industry. So no
Right.
change in regulation means that again they could have listed cannabis as a nutritional supplement. And if you ever watch TV these days, you see this commercial for Prevagen, right? Which is this supposedly this product that the active ingredient is this aquaporin protein, which they isolate from jellyfish, right? They put into a capsule and they could advertise it. And it's making hundreds of millions of dollars for this company called Quincy Pharmaceuticals without any FDA proof that their shit even works. It's total garbage, and they've gotten sued for false advertising. And still, these senior citizens buy this shit like there's no tomorrow. They should call it the placebo pill because that's all it is. When you ingest a protein, like the way that this drug Prevagen would be ingested, it would go into your gut, right? Your amino acids or the acidic environment inside your gut would digest the protein into amino acids, and it never gets to the brain like the commercial says it does, even though they have a nice graphic that shows neurons firing in 3 dimensions. So, ooh, this stuff must work. It's like a a multi-million dollar you know placebo pill, and it sells as, again, in that wild west called nutritional supplements. So the FDA allows that kind of crap, but we have this long history of showing cannabis effective in treating all kinds of medical conditions. And no, that's Schedule 1. There's no accepted medical value, for cannabis when the government's own patent showed it to be neuroprotective, right? and collected licensing revenue by, selling that patent to a small company in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. So yeah, I mean the hypocrisy is super thick, and and everyone's like holding out to see, ooh, the farm bill, the farm bill, they want to raise from 0.3 to 1%, like that's going to do anything. Ultimately, they need to completely deschedule and not reschedule the plant because rescheduling it to 3 is just a nightmare for so many different reasons that we've already talked about. But I mean, anyway, sorry to get on that rant.
No, I mean, just to bring the question full circle, the reason I ask is like, there's always a debate of, solventless carries all these fats and lipids and all
Yeah.
this, and like I make vape carts, with solventless material, and it tastes.
Yeah, you don't want fats in that. You don't. Yeah, you'd like to have that completely things that will vaporize down to the last drop, just like what you put on the nail. And so yeah, so cannabinoids, terpenes, maybe trace flavonoids. Remember that the flavonoids that sometimes come along for the ride, when they exist in the plant, there's two portions to that molecule. There's the aglycone, which is what we call the flavonoid, right? So like those don't have a sugar on it, but in the plant, right, like the anthocyanins, there's kind of like a phenolic portion, which is the aglycone, but then there's a sugar portion, right? And so those things, yeah, in either extraction or distillation will fall apart. So what we just get is the aglycone. But yeah, I mean, you don't want any fats, waxes, or lipids in that because not only will it create off taste, but it'll leave residue back in the nail. And yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I just, when we make hash, respectfully, there's, in those waxy glands, there's things that are, brought over. Um, and I see certain varietals work better in a vape form than others, and the Senepois of those oils that are created from those varietals, right? And that typically dictates the way that they can flow into an atomizer, which is I find very interesting. So,
Well, they build viscosity again, like as you start to volatilize, right? The more volatile components are gonna, the viscosity is gonna change inside the tank, right? I mean, it's got to, right?
yeah, for sure, the viscosity definitely does that, but I've also seen like certain decarb rates, also affect how it can and can't work with an atomizer, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you're not taking something far enough or trying to make a more thick, more terpy substance, it doesn't, and you're specifically on the solventless side, there's challenges there where you don't have these challenges in a solvent extraction method. It's really interesting, so that's why I bring it up. It's like kind of a long-term, study that I've been kind of working on is like decarb rates with different specific varietals and what micron ranges those are and how that affects the post process. So
Yeah,
it's
well, the one
really
thing you always have to remember is that like the decarb process is actually accelerated when you concentrate. So like I think that might be a phenomena of the fact that the rate determining step in decarboxylation of the cannabinoid acids is the protonation of the aromatic ring, right, which is an electron-rich aromatic ring. And once
yep.
that's deprotonated, that carboxyl group becomes a very labile leaving group, and it becomes. I think you can actually lower the temperature at which you decarboxylate by just having a little bit of acid in there. And so the question is like when you concentrate, are there like minor components in the extract that's basically lowering the pH enough to uh, lower the rate of at which you would decarboxylate. So normally you wouldn't decarboxylate until you get up to like 80 or 90 C, right? And you'd actually see at like 100 C, you could see. In fact, Colin, one thing I remember, this is kind of interesting. when
Yep.
we were doing hemp extractions, CBDA is a whole lot more prone to decarboxylation than THCA. I don't know if you've seen that,
Yeah.
but
100%.
we I remember seeing hemp extract after ethanol recovery fizz like a Coca-Cola because when you concentrated that, there's something that basically promoted the decarboxylation of the CBDA. And yeah, it was literally fizzing like a Coke. Like you could see the CO2 bubbles that's
You
coming out of
see
it.
that in solventless too. You see the CO2 fizz, and if you've ever pulled a jar, we've tried it just to see what's up, like, and you open it up, it'll fizz like soda, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I totally know what you know what I mean. And that's it's really interesting, but yeah, so you're right, at low temperatures you can
Yeah.
decarboxylate over time, right? It's just that point thing, right?
And then I don't know if it's related, but when I think about that image, I always think about Dr. Dan Hayden. You guys all know Dr. Dan? He's one of the extractioneering dude. I don't know if you know that guy.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't get a whole lot of love sometimes. I know he likes stirring up the shit. So super smart guy, part of the original Nectar's crew.
Hmm?
He actually adds CO2 in his carbox. He's the guy who adds CO2 into his extracts. And if you think about it, that's a totally classical chemistry move called the Le Chatelier principle, right? So the Le Chatelier principle says that you could pressure an equilibrium by basically putting one of the components on the equilibrium, which then pushes the reaction the other way. So if you're supplementing CO2 into your extraction, right, you're kind of like pushing the decarboxylation method in the reverse way. But
Yeah,
plus,
well,
I think,
that's why it
yeah,
worked in solventless is because it produces it itself generates CO2. It really does, like inside a vessel. Um, and it builds pressure like 5 to 15 pounds is what I've seen, depending on the type of jar. I've taken measurements of it. It's kind of amazing, how it's this like these like little self extractors, doing these
right.
stuff, you know what I mean, in a jar, so to speak. So
Well, it's not supercritical CO2, right? So it doesn't have the same
no, no.
type of, it's supercritical. You have to put under tremendous pressure and heat to get the properties. But I think what's happening somehow is, again, you're fucking with the pH because you're adding CO2, which is going to back up into bicarbonate and carbonic acid, which normally are not stable, right? Normally it would go to CO2 the other way. But when you're supplementing with CO2, you're kind of like you're pushing on the accelerator in the other direction. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. It's kind of cool to think about.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, it's backwards to what you're taught in
Yeah.
a lot of way, right? You know what I mean? So it's kind of why I think it took everybody so long to figure out how to do this well, on the solventless side,
And
because
Dan likes stirring up the shitstorm, so I can see he's played. But he's got some video images, I think, that shows kind of like the bubbliness coming out of like a really heady oil, and it
yeah.
just looks so pretty and so cool, almost like a sparkling champagne. It might just all be marketing bullshit, who knows? But it might be doing something interesting. Who knows? Yeah, you never know.
No, I mean
Well, 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 Caleb just shared an article. Is that car about the carbonation of
Yeah,
oil? Is that
yeah, that's him. Extractioneering. That's the dude.
okay? Okay, so there it is, right there.
Yeah, so he's from the old Holy Water gang, um,
oh,
Right.
yeah.
Holy Water. The Eric and Noel and yeah, Dr. Dan was in that crew. Pinsky had introduced me to those guys early on,
Yeah.
and yeah, look at this stuff. Like, what's with this? Is there something to that?
I mean, that just looks like natural, expression of like itself generating its own carbonate, like CO2 basically. Um
Yeah, what does he say there about? this
That
versus
must still be hot though. Like that has to be warm oil for it to be doing that like that.
you think
Well, did you
so?
see the way it poured?
Yeah,
It didn't pour like it was cold oil. I'll tell you that much. It didn't even drip, you guys. Like, holy shit.
that's
That
true.
shit was probably like
Yeah.
fucking hot
You think
oil.
so?
I would, yeah,
Yeah, it
I
has to
would
be
say
like
I'm almost at the I know so point, but I can't possibly know. But the way it poured, dude, are you kidding me?
that has to be
Watch,
hot. The way that the
has
bubble
to
like
be.
that, I've never seen cool oil ever in my entire
Oh
life.
shit. That's awesome.
Yeah, but that's cool, bro. That's cool.
Welcome to Etienne and Caleb for popping in on us this Sunday morning. Nice to see both of you.
Welcome. Well, people seem to forget that just a decade ago we were still using wicks and peg and all these other things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
people forget that, vaping carts and all of this are still very fucking new. Those who are
Yeah.
using them, they're used to going to their gas station and getting these sort of things, right? They're literally everywhere USA, now, but people don't realize these
Yeah.
steps and technologies that it took for us to get there to finally remove the peg and using the actual extracted terps to actually reinsert back to make it viscous. That's not even a decade old, people. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I mean, barely, so these
Yeah.
technology advancements are gonna continue to push the boundaries because we're still understanding the material, right? Much less how things react, right? Mark is fascinated by just the CO2 reaction, right? And that's just CO2. That's a basic, chemical process there, right? So
Coming
that
out of
just
your
shows you
mouth
the
right now.
right. So right. Oh no, and lots of it, right? So, it's fascinating how, I hear people bitch and complain about this, but how few people are actually contributing to the advancement of the science is getting smaller and smaller because we're really starting to target these, product lines because we've had now a decade to play with them and to understand them. But at the same time, it's still a new process. And with these chemicals and volatilizing them and burning them off also comes with a whole other set of problems and, issues that we didn't even consider a decade ago that are now, of course, the forefront of the realities that you're dealing with, right, Dr. Sheldon?
Absolutely. No, I mean, like the point you bring up around Wix and Peg and all that stuff. I mean, now labs are testing for that, making sure there's no vitamin E acetate. As it turns out, a lot of that shit, ATN was like it was just from unswarthy players who were just cutting their distillate, because guess what? Now you could turn 3 liters of distillate into 10 liters of distillate by adding a bunch of shit to it, right? And yeah, I mean, the market, I guess, has
Hey,
matured.
time out. Could you give us the recipe on that adding the shit? I'm gonna need ratios. I'm gonna need the names of the shit that I put in. Not that I would ever do that.
And can you get me the number of that cart company in China? I really need about 200,000 of those. That'd be great. Thanks.
This is decarbed material. This jar was full. And like, it's it's interesting because like, finding the right temperature setting and the right cartridge to work with these types of extracts is still a journey. Like I'm still like calling everybody, trying all kinds of stuff, because those that I was even thought was really good at one point, I've gone back to trying their units and I'm like, halfway through the cart it stops saturating, right, Mark? Because maybe whatever, you can't insert here, whatever problem. But it's, it's
Yeah.
it's an issue because I feel like it's as if we're all musicians, like working in these like really amazing studios with all this amazing audio file, and then all of a sudden, like they're listeners listening to it on like the worst earbuds, and not even
Yeah.
listening to, like all the work that you put into it, and it tastes like burnt whatever because that's just the more convenient. So it's tough, and I wish we could give this because some of these cards taste true to form. Like I've gotten like notes of haze and blueberry and really delicious experiences, but it doesn't last all the way through the actual cart.
Well, you're
It's
not going to trace or taste the trace heavy metals that you might be breathing in along with that. So all
That's
that stuff that's
true.
manufactured over in China, just using their supply chains, where they're recycling electronics in woks that are used to make the family's dinner later that night, is just, you know, it's a dirty supply chain. There's
Yeah.
nothing you could do about it. I don't know. I mean, I take my hat off to those companies again, like Puffco and everything, who's have to live or die based on, you know, a supply chain where they can't always control the homogeneity. So just anything shiny metal, you know, and you know, ceramics is not
Even,
the
dude, ceramics can be
is
dirty too.
ceramics could be super
Super
dirty.
dirty. Like
So
really toxic stuff.
ceramics, if you understand the structure of ceramics, are
Yeah.
porous materials and could absorb all kinds of shit and are made in furnaces at huge fucking temperatures. So there's all kinds of shit that can go wrong in those
Totally.
supply chains. But
Yeah.
like anything shiny metal, so if you just look at like the brass ring that's around the outside of the cartridge, or anything metal in the cartridge, stands to have contamination of lead, cadmium, mercury,
Yeah.
arsenic. You know, and again, you could
High
always, you
level,
know,
dude.
have
Right.
a really great relationship with a supply chain partner that says, oh, we have a guy on the ground in Shanghai and we're doing this and we're doing that. And you try to make sure that you de-risk that opportunity as much as you possibly can. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what they send you a COA on and what you get from the back of the warehouse when you actually order 150,000 units might be two different things, right? And
True.
they got to
Yep.
get rid of all that old dirty shit because it failed someone's inspection, or maybe somebody, you know, had the vape cartridge tested before they actually bought 150,000 of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're stuck with all that equipment, it's like, oh my God, now I got to make vape pens out of this because I need to recoup my investment. So there's
Yep.
all kinds of different pressures that make that supply chain difficult, if not just impossible to possibly de-risk.
Well, don't forget the original pressure, the pressure of people blowing up, because that was a whole thing that was happening for a while.
Yep. Yeah. The whole thing.
Smoking on a cartridge, they were blowing
Yeah. The
up.
batteries.
No, making yeah, well, the batteries, but no, I was talking about the process of making the oil. Like people trying to make their own oil were blowing
Oh,
up
open blasting and
from
whatnot.
I
Yeah.
well, from every process. People blew up with like I seen people do it with bloody alcohol,
Yeah.
Yeah.
set themselves on fire.
Yeah. No. No. No.
Well,
Yeah, but I mean, look, like Mark, this was like amazing, and then it just now it just doesn't even work. It's just
Yeah,
like,
you can't even put those batteries in a plane for that very reason, Mark, that they explode and
yeah,
start
yeah,
fires.
you
batteries are
can't have them
dangerous
in your
too.
luggage, right?
Yeah, you got to have them on your carry-on bag. That way, if they
You have to have
start
them on your
popping and
carry-on bag.
they're popping and fizzing, it's not like they're gonna blow up a
But
plane,
hey,
but
Marcus, you know, I was thinking about that because I flew with my Puffco and I didn't realize till I was sitting in the plane. I'm like, oh shit, my Puffco's got a battery on the inside of it and it's
huge.
down in my luggage. Ah!
You're lucky they didn't go through it. What's it called for you guys? TSA?
Yeah,
TSA
TSA.
Yeah,
lets you
So
fly with
TSA.
Puffos.
so
You
like
can fly with it.
Yeah, you
so
can
like
fly with it, but just not in your luggage. You got to have it in your carry-on bag.
It
Yeah.
has
so
to
you
be in
need
the
to take your
cabin.
Puffco battery out of your luggage and bring it on your carry-on. Is that what you normally do?
Dude, you
I
should
just
see
carry
my
a little bit.
carry-on, bro. My carry-on is so ridiculous. They're just like, "What is all this?" I'm like, "These are all my hash smoking devices." And they're
But
just looking at me
I
like,
have an
"What
electric
the
I have an
fuck?"
electric
All the
beard trimmer, right? And my electric beard trimmer, which is a real beard trimmer, right? It plugs into the wall, and I could certainly like charge up my beard trimmer and now have like a charge on. So that's got a battery in it. Um, I have other things that have batteries on it that are in my luggage, you know.
Yeah, they're
But
very specific types of batteries.
Yeah.
Lithium ion is what they're looking for
Correct.
specifically. And there's
Correct.
different types of manufacturers. But remember, people, all these carts and batteries are only coming from, count them, ladies and gentlemen, all of two factories in China. Okay. So, and they're not necessarily the best regulated. So, nothing against them. I mean, they make great products. However, we've also seen, a lot of bad products. You go look at just humans. Go look at children's toys out of China. I'm not trying to slag on China. I'm just talking about the manufacturing processes. And what have they found? Oh, they found toys that have mercury and lead in their actual paints and stuff because there's nobody overseeing or regulating. They're just like, I need the product in and out. So the regulating processes for manufacture are and have not been safe or human tested. We've decided to try this on humans. You've decided to be the guinea pig, just so you know.
Which is the case for our cell phones and all the other electromagnetic frequencies we live within, and so many other, the food we eat, the fucking pipes that bring water into our house. It's, dude, we are in some crazy ass experiment. There's no doubt about it. Every once in a while, I think, I even said it earlier, Dr. Mark, when we're like, we got to get all the fats and lipids out of the oil. This shit is dangerous, as we're just honking on big fat doobies wrapped in paper and glue, as we're like, consuming toxic food. Like we just, fuck, I do appreciate cannabis for leading me in this direction of a obsession that makes me want to obsess the same way about other aspects of my life, like my diet, my health, how often I'm working out or being active, all of these things. Like I kind of just want a full melt experience for all of them. And it was hash and cannabis that taught me that. So thank you, hash. Thank you, hash. Yeah, let's have a puff. Let's just do it up here. Oh, we're gonna have a little rip out of the ripper, the sipper, sorry, not the ripper.
What's everybody sipping on?
I am going to sip on some, I've hit the Romulan. Oh, how about this? This is always a favorite. Some champagne.
Champagne. That's a Canadian genetic that came out of the BC region. It's one of those when I was telling somebody the old school when I worked with Ed. Is one of those genetics that I got in the
Oh,
original clone exchange back when I had to be, you go to an undisclosed location, here's the blindfold. Wait, first here's the blindfold, and then the hood's put over your head. Then you're put into a vehicle, and then you're driven to an undisclosed location. You're led out, blindfolded, into a facility while holding your clones, and then you're allowed to take it and exchanging clones. And champagne and pineapple were the two that I got, and I love them both. But unfortunately, pineapple grew so dense here in the Bay Area that there was no transpiration of oxygen inside the buds, and they completely cored with mold. And then champagne worked for a couple of years here, and then white powdery mildew just fucking took it completely out of the run.
decimated it.
It just decimated it as a genetic, at least here in California and the West Coast. I mean,
It
it
needed to be
just
grown a very specific way.
very dry, very, but
Yeah,
when it's done perfectly, oh,
it was, listen, it was,
chef's kiss
I
good.
saw a lot of champagne, and I'll tell you, that plant was very protected for a lot of years. Like there's a reason why people didn't actively, openly give that plant away. If you just went online and bragged that you had that plant and started showing pictures, you could get a visit from someone saying, "Hey, where'd you get that plant?" Because it really was that protected for a long time. My friend, when Gypsy Nirvana first came to Vancouver in like 2000, he stayed at my house just down the street. I was living on the water at the time, and we went to the Sunshine Coast and visited a friend of mine who had a beautiful 10 lighter of that champagne. And he was getting like, back then it was like 24 pounds or something from these 10 lights. These buds, lower buds, were like as big as Gypsy's head leaning into the room. Like he had never seen anything like it. He was like, holy shit, dude. And we posted that all over Overgrow and IC Mag, and I think we made some videos even. But yeah, it was an incredible cultivar because it was the first cultivar that I'd ever seen that grew these giant football-sized buds that when you trimmed them and dried it off, they were just like the perfect Los Angeles cannabis flower. We joked about it up here because we were like, it's got fake eyelashes and fake boobs and a fake bum and a fake, like it was just like it was like the quintessentially like, here you go, look at this. This is what we called trips. Like before the silly word quad existed, it only went as high as three. They were trips. They were triple A's. And they were like, there was always a lineup of people who would pay cash for them. And the rest of the flower in the city, there was a long lineup of people cuffing that flower out, trying to get it into the market. And that was really the difference, the champagne, the true champagne, which was really just the highest caliber, the best grown hash plant. That's what the champagne was. It was like they called it the champagne hash plant because it was grown when it was grown so well. And also the bubble hash from it. Holy shit. It was probably the first time I saw like white, like almost light colored full melt bubble hash. And every time you ran the champagne, you knew it right away because first of all, it was lime green flour, light lime green flour, almost white with resin. That was a huge dumper. And even just the trim itself would make like 6 star, like clear and extremely strong, and not sativa strong, indica strong. So indica strong that it was the one indica cultivar I did see give people anxiety attacks as often as like the crush and some of the other narrow leaf drug cultivars that we had back then. It was unique in that sense. But yeah, shit, I guess after that whole story, I better puff some.
So was that people who smoked hash, or is people who smoked the flower that how it would happen to? It
It was the hash.
was the
The hash
hash.
gate, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure the odd person had an anxiety attack from the flower. It was very strong. And if you were rolling the same size joint all the time, every person said the same thing. They were like, oh, I just rolled my normal joint. And I got like halfway through it and was like, Jesus Christ. It was very, very nice cannabis. All right,
Uh,
here we go. Yeah. But the resin was extremely strong. Dragonfly Earth Medicine's in the chat, but they're not hanging out with us. I don't know. Not sure what's going on there. What are you puffing on, Caleb?
Some Amarillo that I got in Hayfork.
Fuck yeah, dude. I always want to know what Caleb's puffing on.
It's always worth puffing on. Anytime you see Caleb, Caleb
yes,
and I will exchange. I'm like, here's my latest mix. He's like, oh, check this out. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Caleb always has excellent stash worthy of imbibing.
Man, I want to have 90 micron pearl bubble hash.
Oh, that would be so good.
It
I
would
still
be,
haven't
although
tried the pearls.
What was that you smoked with me, Caleb, when we met?
The Vietnamese land race, Red River Valley Vietnamese land race from First Cut Farms.
That shit's fire always.
We destroyed ourselves outside of a conference. Well, which conference was that? The BizCon?
It was the BizCon.
It was the BizCon, and who was with us? Um, was Murphy Murray and Twinkle?
I
Yeah,
forget now. We got too high. I was just
we got.
a hash church watching fanboy coming up to Dr. Mark like happens at every event.
Oh, who's a fanboy of who? What are you kidding me? You know? No, that was great. Yeah, Murph gave a talk. She gives a good, impressive talk. I mean, she's got data. She's got all kinds of like little videos in there and stuff like that, and has got a good discussion around safety. I mean, you were talking about that earlier, Mark, like fires and everything, and how to prevent explosions and fires in labs, because yeah, that gives everything a bad name regardless. And but no, it's so good to see like so many operations, because solvent beats solventless in throughput hands down, right? Like I don't know, I mean, you guys do solventless at really high scale, but if you put the similar investment, similar size rooms and equipment and teams, you could just extract day and night. You're limited by solvent recovery and how quick you can get stuff through the ovens or whatever you're using to recover.
Which do you think that's why the price point on those products fell so dramatically over the last?
Oh, most certainly. Extraction methods and machines and throughput have gotten a whole lot more optimized. And where was I going with this? I'm just fucking high. I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so good to see so many companies. It's because of the market, Marcus. It's because and probably because of Hash Church, and just educating and sophisticating customers on solventless options and how solventless, even in like California, like Los Angeles, still commands a huge premium in the marketplace. And the products that are really good fly off the shelf and they get, definitely a good return at the dispensary. I don't know what they do for the producers, but I know producers, and it's always good to see that. Yeah, we have a solventless line and a solventless product, and that it's as popular as more now than it was, say, like 5 or 10 years ago, right? Don't you think? And rosin, just the technology and being able to scale rosin production, I think was always somewhat of a issue, but now I guess not. Right?
I don't know why it's been an issue, because no one can sell what they can make with their medium-sized machines. Especially most solventless labs aren't running a 24-hour, 3 shifts a day. Most aren't even running 2 shifts a day. I know, I've run enough of these labs. You can make so much hash,
right,
that at that point in time, it's like you won't be able to sell it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it becomes like, what you need to do is not just get the highest throughputs and make the most amounts. That is kind of out the door right now. And it's more like, okay, what we really need to do is grow slow, grow from small to medium to, don't try to be big right away, and kind of learn the flow of what it's like to have sources of plant material and SKUs and all of the things that you have to line up to go to market, which is an unbelievable amount when you really break it down, the amount of shit you have to do to make just a single SKU, let alone, 10 SKUs. It's unbelievable. And then all the markets are different too. Like, where people are talking right now about price, they're talking here in BC, it's very expensive. $70 a gram for rosin, like what I have. It's $140 for a 2-gram jar. It's beautiful, incredible material, but on the same thing in Michigan, you can get some killer fire, for like 2 grams for $40 or something like that. So it just depends on the market that you're in,
It does.
how expensive the place you live is. If everything's expensive, then probably everything is going to be expensive. Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I like the idea of rosin being affordable, but I also know that it has to make, most people have a hard time writing the cogs on their cost, on what it actually costs them to make a gram of hash. So until you can really figure out what that is, what that cog is, of like how much your equipment costs, how much electricity you're using, the space, the rent, everything you're doing, your labor, all of your costs wrapped into, the ROI. Obviously, you're not going to charge your equipment on the first gram, but there's an ROI that you figure out. And if you want to do a 6-month or a 1 year, you got to get this much paid off on every gram. You can figure it out pretty easy to how much it ends up costing to make this stuff. And I still see in the Canadian legal market hash selling for $2 and $3 a gram wholesale, which is bankruptcy sales. These are sales that the vaults are full. They're trying to get rid of it. The vaults are full, by the way, because they were like, we need a third machine and we need to run these things, 12 hours a day, these legal companies. And they just filled the vaults with hash. That's like, and silly enough, if only they understood that, the Canadian cannabis industry first had only cannabis. And what happened was um, it the packaging was terrible. And the pressure in the vessel of the active water would push on the packaging. And you've got terpenes and aromatic volatiles mixed in there. And whatever the glue was they were using, the terpenes would consume that glue in these
Mm-hmm.
micro fissures, but the pressure of the container would blow air out. And by the time you went and bought it like a week later, dude, that shit would be like dust. You just like grab it and go, poof. It would just, so Canada took a big hit on that. But unfortunately, when extracts came out, all these Canadian, companies, the ones that are buying from the provinces, the BCLDB, the OCS, the Alberta version, the SQ, all of them, um, we're understanding that hash was like weed. If it was 6 months old, RTV, send it back to vendor. We don't need to have that on the market. What they didn't understand is that hash gets better with age, depending on how you seal it and cure it and allow it to exist. Cannabis is harder. Cannabis you would want to preserve. You don't want to like dry it out for too long in the market because it just becomes something that people aren't excited about to smoke. Welcome to Josh and Kelly, who are about to take a bong rip. I should have waited for you to get the bong rip right up to your mouth and then be like, "Hey, welcome, Josh."
Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see everybody this morning.
Good
Yay.
morning. Did your cup match your shirt?
I think it does.
It
Okay,
does. Good colors. I
we
caught
gotta
that.
we gotta shout out the Arcata Co-op in California.
Those are baller,
I mean,
dude.
come on, like
This
this
fits
is a quart jar.
this fits an entire quart.
Fuck
And
yeah,
it's like
dude.
beautiful. And the mug is like the handle is as big as the mug, so it like can be held and it stays warm because the clay is super thick. So Arcata Co-op, whoever is
Awesome.
making these beautiful pottery, she's been doing it for probably like 20 years. I don't know who it is, but shout out. Thank you so much.
Dude, fucking hippies. I love you guys. Those are
Yeah,
so awesome.
I know. People see us come around the corner like this, and we're like, "What?"
What? Just this giant, and it's not plastic. That's what I think is the best about it.
Yeah.
I heard you say earlier that yeah, look at that beautiful cat. You know, what a cutie.
Meow.
Who doesn't
If
love a
it
good
was,
cat?
if it weighed 150 pounds more, it would consume Dr. Mark. It would just eat him. That's what I love about cats.
Yeah, we have the the cats around here and the dogs too. Like we've been hearing the wild wolves, the dogs, and the coyotes, and it's you always know there's coyotes and there's wolves out there, but it's like they're dogs, you know. And then there's these
Yeah.
big cats like lynx and
Yeah, you guys,
bobcats, and
we've been wondering why our fruit is staying on our trees for the last 2 years. It's been really wild. Like last year, the wasps got a bunch of it. And right now, like things are like the plums are becoming ripe. But normally the bears would get all of the plums year after year. They would get all of the apples. They would already be really pressuring us. Normally we would walk outside and there would be 4 bears in the orchard at any given day. In the last 2 years, we've had absolutely no bears. Well, now we know why. So at nighttime, we've been hearing the wolves like in our field, and they're really big timber wolves, and we've never actually had timber wolves before.
gray wolf.
Really ever. They're called gray wolves, I guess. They're gray wolves. Let's see if I can. It's sort of crazy. I've been
And they're not small, they're huge. They're big. People, when you see a dog next to a wolf, you're like, oh shit, that's a big wolf.
Yeah.
That's my meme. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe I'll get some food from those humans.
It happened to cannabis too.
30,000 years later, the weed, the dog, everything's changed when it gets into our hands.
Can you guys hear that?
Dude, we fuck shit up. Can we hear what?
Can you hear this?
No.
No. No, can't hear it. Anyway, I had some wolves. I recorded some wolves in our field, and it was like so haunting
Oh,
to
I
have them.
bet.
It almost feels like, you have smells from like, you don't know where they come from, maybe a past life, or you hear something and it reminds you of an exact moment. Like to
Yeah.
hear wolves like in your presence, there's something so deep about it. I can't really explain it.
Well, I can tell you that they changed the geography of where you live. So that's something. Where you live has been changed by the wolves that have
Oh,
lived where you live. They've changed Yellowstone National Park because of the
wow.
way they hunt the elk, the way they
They changed
move.
the rivers.
They change the rivers. Exactly.
Yeah,
It has
I
to
saw
do with
that.
hunting and keeping the animals off the edges so that the trees can grow up and create
And then the
proper.
beavers come back and start
That's
building their
right. No,
dams.
no, the wolves change the geography. They are like they're not just someone just mentioned they balance the forest. Yes, absolutely. They balance the forest. It's not just about like eating other animals. It's the whole thing plays out on a level that is literally changing the structure of your geography, which is super cool. Like
Love that.
yeah, I think there's a documentary out or something. Where did you see all that stuff, Etienne?
There's a video on it, and it talks about it's just how the wolves changed the river flow in Yellowstone. Just go look it up, and it talks about
Hmm.
yeah how it is and how it changed, how the elks and how all the different animals now that they're being hunted, they're no longer in the fields eating all the grasses, so the grasses grow and they grow along, and the rivers move along with it. Yeah, it's incredible, man. I mean,
It's
nature
cool.
really needs every level of itself to survive, and if we
Dude,
interrupt it as we have, things will change. But look, you're even telling us right now how bears ain't coming because the wolves are out. And that's real, and that's across all nature. Because when you hear those howls, I grew up in Louisiana. We had wild
There you
dogs and
go.
wild wolves, and I'll take a wild pack of dogs over a wild pack of wolves any fucking day. Both suck, but because what happens, people don't even realize this, but your dogs in rural areas run away and they will all pack up. And when they all pack up, they get feral and they're no longer friendly to humans. So, whereas wolves, you can smell a wolf pack before you see a wolf pack. They
Yeah.
are that significant and their pack mentality,
I
man.
I grew
They
up in
spread their scent
Manitoba. We had
everywhere.
lots.
Wow.
We had a lot. I would go
You
to my
have the
dad's
timber
cabin
wolves.
in Woodridge and yeah, exactly, dude. Oh my God, these things. But here's what the search I did on the wolves. Wolves changed rivers through trophic cascade, where their reintroduction in Yellowstone led to a reduction in elk overgrazing. This allowed vegetation to regenerate, stabilizing riverbanks, which in turn reduced erosion, narrowed river channels, and created more pools and riffles. Consequently, the rivers became less prone to meandering and more stable, creating better habitats for other wildlife, including beaver, fish, and aquatic insects. That's so cool. Like, come on.
And a
That's
That
lot
is
of
so,
absolutely.
and more
The,
dragonflies, and a lot of things that eat little bugs, when you have more fish and stuff, there's less bugs. I mean, it
well,
sucks to live
for those,
I
like
was
most
watching
that's
live.
somebody talking about how they were farming this year with their cows and not trimming the grass and allowing the tall grasses to stay because the dragonflies land on the tall grasses to observe. And of
nice.
course, if you've ever seen anything regarding a dragonfly, they are the master hunter in the wild. They literally like get 95 to 97% of their catches because they can literally anticipate the pathway of a bug. So if you just leave the tall grasses, the dragonflies will. And they were in this field of cows, not a fly on any of the cows, which is shows you that, sustainable and working with nature is the way. When we cut the grass and you get all the flies and everybody gets eaten because there's no place for the dragonflies to land.
Dude,
So we got
dragonflies
to
are
think of these
savage.
things.
Like you get pictures of dragonflies eating like I was getting pictures in Winnipeg at the fishing trip. They were eating horse flies, the big ones.
Amazing.
And
yeah.
this dragonfly would just like open its mouth like the fucking predator, grab this bug, and even just the iPhone shots, man, I was like, holy shit. Dragonflies are awesome little buddies, but they're murder machines. They are
Yeah.
like, go
Nature
kill
is
all of these
fucking
parasitic
brutal.
bastards. Dude, you like honestly, it's like the shit that would be equivalent that we created to like a dragonfly would be like an Apache helicopter. Like
Not
that thing,
Yeah.
Just
it can stop on a dime, it can fly sideways, it can fly backwards, it can fly like holy
and then
shit.
you add the whole component that they live in water before they fly. So
Right.
they're a nymph in the water. They can only live in clean water, so it's a clean situation where they
Dude,
prosper.
what
And
a creature.
we've had these cool experiences where we've seen the nymph like crawl out of the water, like onto the log beside us, and then just crawl out of its skin, roll its wings out, and just fly away. And we're like, wow, we just like watched the wings roll out from like a crystal, like wasn't a chrysalis because it was a living creature.
A nymph.
Yeah,
That's what it's called. You know, another thing that is really amazing about dragonflies is that they are the highest flying, migrating insects in the world. They fly way above the oxygen level and they go from continent to continent
Dragonfly
in these
migration.
massive swarms. And they have like dragonfly migration and they go higher than any other bird. I guess bats go pretty high. They're another one.
There's dragonflies that go like 2,500 miles or something in like wind currents and stuff. I think from Africa to South America or something. You can look it up.
Oh, you know, one thing I wanted to say too about the wolves that's been really interesting is that we're seeing some of their scat in the field and they're now eating the apples. So the bears have always eaten the apples and now the wolves are coming down and they're eating the apples.
And the
And I think
coyotes.
that they're jumping up in the trees even. They're climbing the trees quite a bit to get these really delicious apples. And that's just not anything that we've ever seen before. So I do believe what you're saying, ATN, that there's something about these cycles. And when cycles come in, they cleanse and they renew and they regenerate. And having the wolves here really truly has been like an incredible regeneration of our apple trees, of our cherry trees. It's allowed a lot of the berries in these zones to really flourish. So I can see that the bears are pushed up higher into the mountains and they're probably becoming healthier by not being closer to us. So there's got to be something that, you know, is a beautiful trade-off. I really like what you were saying.
And they always break the like bears break the trees. Like they have bear pruning. They prune the tree a certain way. And honestly, like they sit in the tree and they pull branches to them. So after a while, like a tree they like there's seats up there, you know, like
No, there's
I
bear
have
seats.
seats where I can sit up, it's like comfortable, you know. But after a while, like the tree it's nice for the tree to grow a couple years, you know. And again we try and keep the bears off the trees for sure. You know, we're trying to get our own fruit, but we have like 20 or 21 trees on our property that are just planted by bear shit and wild, and every single tree is different. And some of them are good for applesauce, some are good for juicing, some are good for dehydrating or freeze drying, and or
Apple butter,
vinegar,
apple butter.
you know. And we don't drink alcohol, but I think it's be fun to like you know check out like hard cider or whatever. But yeah, I didn't hear what you said, Colin,
Make
but
some apple cider.
the apple ciders, I mean,
Like best.
yeah,
We've been pressing it
it's
every
like
day.
weirdly like liquid gold. Like
Yeah.
when you like actually just press apples, you're just like, oh my God, this is
Yeah. And it's
thick.
fun when you don't give your grandchildren any kind of sugar and they really don't eat sugar, but it's apple pressing time. Our granddaughter was running around in circles yesterday
Sing a
and she
song.
was like, I just love this apple juice. I just love the way it makes me feel. I want more. It was so funny. So good sugar, but definitely gets her high.
Hey, I have
Oh yeah,
an
wait until she's 13.
I have an apple
Like
question
Reese
that
peanut butter cups.
was related to living soil. So back in my fraternity days, my fraternity had a nice little plot of land that included an apple orchard. And just because we could, we grew in the apple orchard. You know, it had stippled sunlight because these trees were way overgrown and they weren't taken care of like producing apple trees, but they did produce a ton of apples. And, apples in this area of Michigan would always dry and lots of deer. So there was a healthy biome growing back there. So the weed that we grew back there was just, plant the seeds in the springtime, come back in the fall and harvest, was really dank. And I don't know, is there something about growing in an apple orchard with roots in the ground? I mean, is there a certain biome that sort of the apples, and I don't think this was ever commercially farmed, so the apples would just grow and fall off the tree and rot and certainly create some kind of plume of apple degradant in the soil. But is there something about growing in an orchard?
Well, I think that apples actually, when they decompose, they contain a tremendous amount of phosphorus. So, apple peels, especially apple peels that are like keepers. So the pectin in the apple peel, and then as it rots into the earth, the peel will sort of be one of the last things to go, which offers, a lot of phosphorus. So you get all of that nitrogen from East Coast air, especially in the summer times, Midwest, Michigan,
Well,
Midwest.
and it recruited a lot of animals. So there was constantly deer through there. There's constantly deer poop on the ground. I mean, that's got to, again, influence the biology of the soil, don't you think?
100%. I think that it does. I think that if you go into orchards that are not sprayed or ones that are taken lightly or regenerative orchards, I mean, that's some of the most intelligent, beautiful soil that you can find, because it's coming from trees. It's not coming from plants that just have a season, that seed up and then they die and they come down. You have this intelligence of a tree that's going very deep down in the ground to mine minerals and
water. So sometimes in Michigan, there's like a high water table, in a lot of places in Michigan. So chances are, if it was a healthy old orchard or something, that the ganja would have tapped into a underwater water source, which would add to its health quite a bit, because it would just be able to have that nourishment. Also, depending on the apple tree, I mean, some apple trees start losing their apples like first thing in August.
Right.
And then any, decomposition, I mean, in natural farming, fermented fruit extracts, peels, seeds, fruit, flowers, all those things, like Kelly said, not only contain phosphorus, but also potassium and all of the finishing minerals in there.
Right. We used to, like, if you can imagine like a grid of like 4 trees, right in the apex in the middle, there'd be a spot that would get sunlight. So again, we just sort of naively, that's where we want to grow. We want to grow right there and everything. And again, sometimes the deer would mow down the buds, but a lot of times, for a bunch of fraternity guys who are eager to smoke weed, it was cheap, easy weed to grow. And I just remember it being very flavorful. And I'm like, well, of course it's flavorful. We're growing in an apple orchard, okay? There's got to be some kind of continuity of the chemistry of the apples into the soil, into the weed plant, right? I mean, at some point. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, yeah, because the sugars, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for metabolites, like it's naturally providing, like I make a lot of pumpkin, like decomposition.
Well, it's acidic, right?
Around me, right?
It's acidic. It's going to create acidity in soil, right? So the degrading apples themselves, like Kelly said, it's got pectin in it.
Yep.
So pectin is great bug food. I mean, at some point, like on the food chain, like all the pseudomonad bacteria just start digesting all of that pollen. It's like, oh my God, it's cheap, easy food. They don't have to like work too much to get it. So instantly, like you could, bury apples and they're gone within a matter of just days, just because if you have active microbes in the soil, it's history. But it feeds to the overall richness of the biome there. And I just think about, okay, like who planted these apple trees? So this was on the property of a lumber baron. This was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And first of all, I wanted to also point out, because you're we were talking about the soil in general. There are natural springs in the Upper Peninsula that actually flow brown with tannins because there's so much tannins in the soil. It looks like a river of root beer. I kid you not. It's like we used to call it the root beer river.
How did
There's
you get
just this.
plants? Did you
This
water with that kind of stuff, or did you?
no, we didn't. I'm just pointing that out. So where this property was, it was located on a waterway that was very it was an important waterway for the logging industry back in the late 1800s. The entire area was logged. This is like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan on Portage Lake. Beautiful area of Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Absolutely beautiful, pristine. And this property was like about 8 acres right on a place called Chassel Bay. And in that bay, Colin, they had like logged so much that there was so much like waterlogged timber like on the bottom of like the bay that it
Yep.
like just the complexion of the bay was like kind of like this brownish. It was, the water was blue. Like when you looked at the water, you'd see a nice reflection of blue. But when you look at the lake itself, it's like, wow, there's some kind of like brownish kind of stuff on the bottom of the lake because all of this tannin and biomass from the logging era. But the other thing I was just going to say about the weed is that I remember this was just like bag seed weed. Like we didn't even know what kind of seeds they were. It was probably Mexican, who knows, back in the day. We were just total unaficionados, but we're like, oh, everyone likes smoking weed. Let's grow some in our apple orchard. So there's nothing
Yeah, but
special about
the
it.
sugars though, man, that's why it probably tasted so good. Is like honestly like that natural ability for it to be there like
Well,
all the time. You know, like
but
that.
that's the plant, right? I mean, that's the sugars that were in the apple recruited by microbes, right? That consumed all that. That sugar doesn't somehow magically transfer the sweetness of the herb, right? That's not.
No, it
Yeah.
does actually. It
Does
it
really?
contributes
You think
to
so?
why a plant, if you like, there's studies on, like if you feed a plant more sugars at the end of its flowering, towards in the middle of its flowering cycle, it will express more flavor.
So if you put apple mash into your soil, does your weed taste like apples? Is that right?
No, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it'll give the plant's ability to pull those sugars in and utilize those to produce those secondary metabolites, right? And so it'll express what's there even more from the plant side, not from the apple, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Well, I think that also it's drawing, like what you're saying, Colin, is it's drawing particular microbes, and
Yeah.
particular microbes are breaking down particular types of terpenes and particular types of esters and all of these things. It draws certain types of microbes. So, say that you have a microbe that you planted a lot of lemongrass around, there's tons of like terpinolene, you've got your limonene around, then what's going to happen over time is the dropping of that grass over seasons is going to draw the microbes that are able to break down those particular terpenes. So then the exudates of those microbes, I truly believe, are becoming much more available to the ganja plant. So we've always thought that. We've always thought, well, let's plant a lot of
Apple fritter on
very,
in the apple
well,
orchard.
yeah,
Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's
I just think that you can do, very aromatic plants. Not only is that going to help, with pests, but it's also going to help with the breakdown and bring some higher intelligence, I think, to your plants. And I also feel that it's really important to drop those leaves, drop some of those little buds, anything onto the ground that you can. So then you're bringing, more intelligence to break that down as well.
Yeah, I think the influence of the environment is so true, definitely, right? And I think that's fair. Yeah. So, yeah, Dr. Mark, I think that's really, you guys just had like a magical spot. That's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? You just like had this most honest,
Yeah.
amazing you could ever have. And then you're like, wow, why does it taste so good? You
Maybe
know?
Well, and we were totally carefree about it too. I mean, like we weren't upset. Like we didn't go back there every day to water or anything. We're just like throw seeds in the spring. Oh, let's go back. That's right. We grew some weed. Let's go look at those plants. I think I maybe went back one time during the summertime. I'm like, ooh, we actually got some decent plants. Like they're on their way. It's like I'll come back in the fall. I mean, just completely, just not even thinking
So
about it.
is it seeded male and female then, obviously, I
I,
guess?
I have, you know
Who
what? I
knows?
don't even remember. I
You
just
got lucky
remember having
or all.
free weed at the fraternity house, which made me very popular at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe,
But the
maybe.
other thing, so check this out. So obviously, like when you look at like, well, and again, I wouldn't think just increasing the acidity. So when you break down any kind of fruiting matter, I think even mushrooms do this too. You're just increasing the amount of like phytic acid and all of these basically lignin components in the soil, even like degrading leaves. I guess this is like any kind of compost, right? The bugs that are going to come in that are going to degrade those are basically doing it. They're not doing it for the terpenes, they're doing it for the sugar, because cellulose is basically polymers of sugar, and every basically polymer unit is a molecule of glucose, and that's glucose that their cells need, right? So you're looking at this almost from just like this survival, and again, goes to the basis of living soil, right? All of these things are basically working off of each other to basically create this symbiotic relationship to create, quote unquote, a healthy soil. So I would think that like those trees, which were dropping apples for probably 15, 20 years, like nobody seriously collected these apples. They were just there. The trees were there. They were dropping apples, increased the acidity, overall acidity of that soil, but also just created this wonderfully active living soil, right? I mean, living soil that have been fed on apples for years, and attracting all the deer in that would eat the apples and poop and maybe even bear this area of upper Michigan. I
Yeah.
imagine at one point there were wolves there.
Yeah, it's also cool to think about the alcohols that are being released, from the apples, and then
Which the animals
it
get drunk.
draws. Yeah, but I'm thinking even like, all of the different alcohols that it creates in the soil, in the living soil, and what that draws away from it. We know that alcohol can get rid of a lot of different pathogens, and
Sure.
I'm sure that is really related in there. The other thing that I was thinking about is maybe the cannabis and the alcohols go together because they can share their stories of persecution. They can share their stories where the
Getting cut down,
humans
now
have
they're living
cut
together.
them down, and now they're living together freely by some fraternity guys. I've actually just
George
reading.
Washington.
I've been reading a lot
fucking
about
crush.
King Henry, and when the English were trying to become more pious, and they were trying to become. This is in the mid 1500s. They were trying to become more one with the Vatican, because King Henry had like pushed the Vatican away and tried to create his own church. And during that time, the French were just going absolutely insane. They were having orgies. They were drinking like crazy. They were just, so the English were doing everything they can to not be the French. And one of the largest things in not being the French, they started to cut off alcohol and started to realize that alcohol made their people crazy. So they would only keep alcohol for the court. And they would make sure that the court was all drunk, which was their 1,000 people that watched over the king, but all the peasants and the people, they went and cut down all of their fruit. So imagine, and then what's really interesting is then rickets came about. No, not rickets, so scurvy. And they couldn't figure out, like, wait, how are people getting these scurvy and all of these odd diseases that they were, maybe saying was some kind of a plague, but it was from cutting down all of the fruit. And then the people weren't getting the ascorbic acid and the vitamin
Yeah.
C from it. which is really quite interesting at how much that offers. And even fresh wine is a lot like juice and probably has like a lot of vitamin C in it, which is
It's going to be fascinating, dragonfly peoples, is now that you've got your wolves eating your apples, it's going to be interesting to see where your apple trees now grow, because they're going to be taking those seeds and you're going to randomly find in the woods now apple trees. And so it'd be great if an arborist could follow the natural growth of your trees as they now continue to spread around BC, because that's just a natural propagation that's happening that the bears were doing, right? So where would the bears were taking their shits, and there's apple trees growing there. So inadvertently, you're spreading apples throughout BC. That not sure if you knew that or not, but it could be a very interesting study in trees.
Yeah, I really love that. And if you think about it, the bears, like Josh said, they make a nest up in the tree and then they consume. And honestly, it's almost impossible to get them out of the tree. You could light fireworks, you could spray bear spray.
Pull your car.
Oh, so you've tried to scare them out of the trees and they're like, fuck off.
No, they're just like, I'm here and I'm a little bit drunk because it's turned to alcohol and I've got this seed. So
they're fermenting.
Sit there. Yeah. They sit there and shit and sit and shit. So a lot of their poop stays in the orchard area. And what you're saying is these wolves are actually going to carry it very far. And I love that idea. So now they're going to be going up into the highlands, which they do all the time, even in just a day, up and down from the high country to down to us.
And luckily we live next to a wilderness area where you're not allowed to cut anything. So you're able to see small trees and plants grow up. Like in a world where everyone's fire smarting everything and managing the forest, I'm not saying don't, but
I am.
But like
I'm saying don't.
You're getting rid of all of this carbon, and a lot of people, like when they're fire smarting, they take it that you are taking you'll think that you're adding biodiversity to the forest, but you're honestly mostly you don't know what you're cutting down. Like, let's be honest, you're not out there identifying every bush and being like, whoa, this is crazy. Actually, this is the one bush that grows in this whole entire. So, and when you gather, medicine out of the forest, Oregon grape, different things, and you're paying attention, Devil's Club, and you're looking for different stuff, you start realizing like the biodiversity of the forest is so important. Plus, we look for mushrooms a lot, and you can't have mushrooms in a managed forest. Like there's nothing to eat. You're taking away future soils. So there's a balance towards having wild areas in your property, on earth, in your forest, not to fear it, because so much of those wild areas are actually damp in the summer, where they have, like in some cases, green grass, because there is, like Mark said, diffused light, and it's not just bare and exposed. Like some weed farms are too bare and exposed, and there's nothing. All the biology on the top of the soil on the top should be the most active thing. But if there's just 100-degree sun beating down on your soil, I mean, there's no biology there. I mean, you'd have to do like compost teas and all this stuff to just give the plant something living. And also the acidity component of like fruit falling, like that is also cyclical. Like it's acidic in the fall and as it's breaking down, but often with grasses and tree branches, there's carbon in there. And when there's more of a high carbon, there you go. Not only can you forage for mushrooms, but you can dab with Merlin while you're doing it, which I think is a good option.
I just thought it went along with what you were saying. This was just a little mushroom foraging trip I did. This is the Woodlot B at Alice Lake on the way up to Whistler, and it's just some dude owns this whole lot for wood, and he's just let it be wild. There's some trails that go through it, and people ride horses and bicycles through it and stuff, but it is the most diverse and mushroom rich little square of land that I have ever been exposed to. And I go there often for winters, for the winter chanterelles.
Well,
They're quite lovely.
I want to bring this up then, okay? Because you're showing us you're out in the woods. And you talked, of course, Kelly, about education, right? And it's really a surprise. And I really got this after the war. I was working on a horse farm in rural Pennsylvania. And we would go to an Amish farm. I would actually have to put on long sleeves, and we would go get sawdust
Mm.
for the horse bedding. And we would walk through the lumber yard, and I was with this guy. His name's Pappy. Pappy was 77 years old at the time. And we would walk through that lumber yard, and he'd point, that's pine, that's this, that's it. And it's cut. It's already, in lumber form.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how absolutely ignorant we are and how our education system does not educate us about what's in our fucking yards, what's in our woods. I saw a very fascinating research project on Brazil nuts recently. And did you know that the entire Amazon forest is full of Brazil nuts because ancient civilizations decided, hey, we're going to need these. So they planted them. And they did a whole research to realize there's no way the randomness of how these Brazil nuts are all over the Amazon that it was randomly done by nature. No, man selectively put them there because we knew it was going to be there. And of course, what's happened? Oh, it's one of the most lush and amazing places on the fucking earth that supplies us with an amazing amount of CO2. There's still plants and animals they're discovering yearly there because of how dense and the natural microbiology that happens that allows not only things to grow but also to adapt, not only to adapt but to evolve, right, into entirely new species of medicines and plants that they're still finding in nature to this day, right? They're like, oh, found this new amazing vine, and you know what I'm saying? So there's a key to these biomes that if they're left unsettled for generations, if not hundreds of years, that's kind of what got me thinking about the apples and the trees and, how far these will grow and how random it will grow based off the trails, because we know they're very educated trails on how the wolves travel. So it's going to be and again, a natural propagation of nature happening in its own way, but now with human manipulation to a some resolve, because where else has, now they'll be saying, hey, wow, there's wolves eating apples. Well, I've not heard of wolves eating apples. They eat wild and everything, but now it'll be interesting to see because now here's a new wolf sociology thing. They're now taking these, and who's to say in the future, oh, they're going to teach their youngins, oh, see that tree over there that they randomly planted? Well, it's now sprouting fruit. Let's eat that fruit because you can eat that.
Yeah,
Huh?
I love
So
this
cool.
conversation because actually it's going to bring in a very vital mineral. So when we test our body, we are almost 100% of us are selenium deficient. Selenium is a difficult mineral to get a hold of. Selenium occurs when you have forested areas in the tropical zones that are thousands of years of incredible amounts of biomass that starts to add up, then we know draws bioavailable selenium. So if you eat 6 Brazil nuts, organic, totally good harvested, good practices, Brazil nuts a day, then you have enough selenium in order to get through the day. So Brazil nuts are not only just everything that you're talking about, but we can even tie in our very basic health systems happen when we leave the freaking forests alone. So I wanted to bring back this idea of managing forests. Really and truly, I feel like it's a knee-jerk reaction. Fire, get rid of fuel. humans, fire, get rid of fuel. So go in the forest and cut down. And they call it fire smarting. And I don't mean to be funny, but it's really true. It's actually making the fire smarter. That's exactly what you're doing. So all these people are fire smarting, fire smarting. But in reality, if you look at how fast a fire can travel with, low amounts of fuel, and then you look at biodiversity and you look at different depths of soil that's created in a very diverse, microbiotic, rich environment, it's set for fire. Those have natural fire breaks and blocks. Talk about animals that set up zones. Animals set up all different types of fire blocks, all in the forest. But as humans, we're like, clear it out, clear it out. This is going to be the best way for us to be safe from the fire. But overplanting, creating an environment that's incredibly damp, multi-diverse environment, microbiotic, bringing animals from all different zones and areas so they can drop seeds, so they can plant things from different zones and areas. I really believe that we need to re-educate and rethink this idea of what we're doing when we're saying we're fire smarting, or that we're creating zones that are going to keep us safe from fire. We're not looking at what nature has offered us as its solution at all. When we're going through that, what we're doing is we're creating more forestry, we're creating more roads, we're creating more access to a lot of these big industry to go into our zones. And we're just jumping along saying, this is a great idea, let's fire smart. When in actuality, these practices are not helping the forest, and they're only helping fire. And dare I say that, but I really want people to educate themselves further about true biodiversity and how it creates health and wellness to us. And I love how selenium and Brazil nuts also just tie right in.
Well, the other thing I think about in retrospect, I mean, not that I think about this a lot, but I think about, like, again, the soil in an orchard, and like this thing, which was an overgrown, unattended orchard, wasn't kept up at all. Not at all. I mean, the trees were overgrown, and obviously, every year that fruit was created and that fruit dropped, it's amazing that the pits in the apples, or the seeds rather, didn't sprout little apple trees all around and kind of suffocate out the big trees. So somehow the big trees were well enough established that maybe the root zone affects the germination rate of new seeds, because year after year, apples were grown, apples were dumped. Again, critters would come in and eat them, and God knows if, again, taking seeds elsewhere created trees elsewhere. But there were no other, like, secondary trees growing from all the fruit that was dropped over, again, decades and decades. I mean, no one grew these trees for apples. And yeah, I would just say the other thing is that, like, we'd go back there and, again, not know if their weed, was either stolen by some local kid who came through, with his buddy. He was like, oh man, there's a weed plant here. Just go back there someday and just find your plants topped off. Or was it a deer? Like, did the deer come through and say, oh, here's some nugs here? We would know. Every once in a while, there would be plants left behind, or sometimes not. And it was just always an interesting place to grow. But I'm wondering if somehow, like in an orchard, when trees get established, do in their root zone, they somehow affect the germination from, seeds that they would drop from fruit produced by that tree itself. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? No.
Yeah, I mean,
That makes sense.
there's a high activity of composting happening in the fruit and in the fruit breakdown, and then all the leaves fall on it, and like I said, and then grass
Well,
is.
in the rind, right, that breaks down further, and the nutrients break down right into the soil, and the worms eat that, and then only filter that out into the levels and the layers, which
Right.
then bring down the wood, which then bring on the mushrooms, which, then start the whole fungal pathway, which we know connects the entire forest system. So, it's very fascinating how, the natural ripple of just, one plant, one animal, but then you start bringing in more, right? Because we've done enough of the monoculture to realize that it doesn't work for humans.
But my point is, ATN,
Only just recently has California realized that, stopping fires is a bad thing, that they need to kind of let nature take its course, right? And if nature takes its course, we do our best to protect humans, but when nature takes its course naturally, it's best for everything.
my thing, just to finish that thought on the fruit tree thing, and then we'll hang it up. I wanted to share this thought before it died of loneliness. Um, so the tree influences the soil around itself, because then it would basically create offspring that could compete for its sunlight. So somehow it's protecting its growing zone. So it actually needed animals and people and things to take that fruit away to then go shit it somewhere else to increase that genetic material in the gene pool, right? Am I articulating this the right way? So the tree couldn't do it itself. The tree needed someone like an animal to eat those apples, shit the seeds somewhere else, so it could spread its genetics that way, because in and around itself, it's not going to threaten its own viability by letting offspring compete with the sunlight for itself. Does that make sense?
It does, and there's also a component where the acidity of the intestinal tract of the animal kind of it inoculates the seed. It strips some of the membranes around on the outside of the seed to make it like more viable for germination as well. So sometimes just going through the body is a way, but also just the heat of the soil, the whole environment, what creates it, because it'll go through a freezing period in the winter. It'll freeze. If another tree falls on the apple tree and breaks a branch, it'll add sunlight to that orchard, and potentially another tree could grow there. So
Right.
it's like it's all in this like constant like
Right.
think and feel, like mostly in an intact orchard, like it won't grow there. But
Yeah.
it's going away to another environment where you get like the right amount of heat in the soil to germinate, to crack the seed.
And I think we could
Which is
super,
so,
I think we
love
could
this.
super trip out too and think about trees that will only grow on hillsides, because there's a certain like steepness
Drainage,
that has
most
to
likely.
happen, that the seed has to fall a certain amount from a tree to be able to germinate, or
Germinate.
that
Yes.
have to grow on the side of rivers, because their seeds have to soak for a certain amount of time in order for them to come up, or ones that are only around certain oases because they need. It's crazy because trees create the environment that they need. They create the environment that they need, and if we give them enough time, then they can create an entire community of what they need.
Yeah, so that's like when you see an overgrown orchard that hasn't been, commercially producing for years, but the trees are still there. The orchard maintains its structure, right? You could still see where the trees are all planted in a line, because the trees are all planted in a line. And yeah, you'll see overgrown other weeds, but you won't. Again, I don't know if there is some real effect that tree dropping its fruit in that area, again, needed to be taken away before those seeds would germinate into other trees.
I
And
love
it's
it.
just, yeah, interesting thing to think about anyway.
You know what? You can
I think it needs some LSD.
the most amazing thing I've seen with orchards and trees is to cover and get rid of all of the dirt underneath the tree and put a manure ring around the drip line of the tree. So like in a perfect orchard where you're giving the tree like passively like the best, like when you read orchard books and stuff, you're trying to use like heavy mulch and all underneath the tree canopy. So really, you really want the roots of an orchard tree are really shallow. So you want to in a perfect world not have grass growing underneath the tree, and then you make a manure ring right at the drip line, and you'll see an incredible transformation of the trees. A lot of old fruit trees get anthrax and different like sicknesses, and it kills the trees. And historic orchards, there's historic orchards around here that are mostly gone, but they used to send cherries and apples all the way back to England from like Caslow and Nelson here in BC on like ferries and railroads and all this stuff. But those trees died because they got these like sicknesses from being hybrid. So I mean, it's nice to think about orchards. And I also really love the idea that trees live multiple years, and so their intelligence grows, like the information that they have like encoded into their genetics. And then when you use that medicine, is in a way you could think of it as like a higher frequency. And when we're a lot of times we're thinking about gardens like annual, you go out, you plant like lettuce or you plant tomatoes and they're dead that year, and you're not really thinking like longevity. Like a lot of the Brazil nuts in South America and the Amazon, like ATM was talking about, are growing on biochar and different char
Yeah.
that's been in the bottom of the forest. Like, so there's like this whole thing of like the Amazon is like a garden, and people had a different way of thinking about your gardens. And that's why I like permaculture and biodynamics and hugelkulture and Sepp Holzer and the whole thing of like putting carbon and stuff and then just mounding and texturing the soil, because you're just putting this like longevity fertility into your areas, into your gardens. And then when roots and everything are growing and breaking down, it's like you're creating a future intelligence just on the fly right in front of you. And then the roots break that down, and then waters retain there, and then more mushrooms grow. And then it's like you have this, within 1 year you've like created that old growth forest. Like when you sit in an old growth forest and you really look at old growth trees, and then if you like take a look at the soils, often the big trees are growing on an old tree. And we've always heard like mother trees, but like the earth is mounded in a way that the huge trees growing out of an old tree. So all the teachings are there, of carbon and nitrogen and that magical ratio and the whole breakdown of living and stuff. So I think succession forests and food farming and perennial fruits and a lot of the superfoods are indigenous foods around you, and we've been always like, don't take out of the forest and repropagate it, which I don't think you should, but the forest is a garden that we live next to, and there's ways of propagating it that are healthy, and when we interact with those foods, like it does bring up like our nutrient level and the density and the power of the nutrients. And I mean, like Marcus said, if you're in a wormhole, like that's fun to think about. And that's why I like food forests. You're creating zones and environments. You're thinking about where the sun is, and maybe you don't want to grow your trees on the south side and block all the sun for your garden. You might want to grow the trees on the north side because it's less shadow on the garden. And I don't know. It's a lot of fun. And ganja and weed plays into that as part of the canopy, and part of the breakdown, and that it does add to the terpenes, and it does add to it's health because of all the natural balance that's happening in the environment and everything. So when given the opportunity, you can live in this magical world where you're, kind of mimicking.
So why do you think we're not taught about, you had to seek out science and biology and all that, Dr. Sheldon, right? It wasn't necessarily naturally taught in school. It was something that sparked a phase, whereas, what Mark
Oh,
and Kelly are experiencing all the time is something that used to be taught, and it's taught in places like UC Davis, which are, agricultural schools, etc. But it should be something we all know and understand what's out, what type of grass is growing in our yard, what type of trees are just in our neighborhood or in our backyard, or going for a walk in the forest and realizing, oh yeah, that's we're all taught about, poison ivy, right? And poison oak. Look out for those. But besides that, the rest of it's really kind of left of fuck off. It's really kind of fucked up.
well, I was taught in school. I mean, I mean, yeah, I mean, you could I know what I know today without going through my educational experience from everything from kindergarten to elementary school through high school and college, all those years in college. I spent 13 years in college, I think. I don't know, I have to go back and add that up, right? But yeah, I mean, it becomes, yeah, I mean, and I understand, secondary education is under fire these days. 18, I think for some of the reasons that you bring up. I mean, people look at like what they need to do to make a living. I think when you ask this generation now what they want to do, I think the more common or the most common response or the more most popular response is they want to be a social media influencer because these people just sit in front of their computers and phones and don't do anything creatively, aren't making anything, aren't doing anything. But like, I teach at a small college here in Vermont, and it's like I interact in the so-called STEM. STEM is just an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm always amazed at like what um, the impact. I mean, all the things about college. I agree. It's super expensive these days to send your kids to college, and then you'll send kids to college. They'll be in a ton of debt and they'll have a degree that it's really difficult in this job environment to get a position in. And so yeah, I understand people's gripe from that point of view is that, do you really need a college degree for some of these high paying jobs where it's just, I think what a college degree shows an employer, 18, you're an employer, you hire people, right? I mean, it shows me as an employer, someone who has a college degree can set their mind to something and complete a task. Okay, I went to college. I got this degree in whatever, I don't know, business administration. I see kids who go to school for chemistry and for health sciences and I just, really having the impact on my students. My students are going to remember me for the rest of their life. They're going to be, oh yeah, Dr. Mark at St. Michael's. They'll be like, oh yeah, like it's such a wonderful thing. Teaching in general is just so much more beneficial. And when you look at like, yeah, a shortstop for a major league baseball team will be making $80 million a year, and then an elementary school teacher can barely make enough above the poverty limit. What is wrong in society today? We put so much emphasis on entertainment and you know the whole free enterprise market of the more you have and the more the bigger your house is and the bigger your plane is or the bigger your car is and what you drive, a lot of what you attach to your status. I think the beautiful thing about cannabis is it's an equalizer. It gets wealthy people as well as people who have no means whatsoever united around this plant and around what we do and around what we how we conduct our lives. And at the end of the day, we all need money to, pay our bills and to make the world go around? And does educating a swath of the population with the knowledge that we have, I mean, being a professor is really rewarding, Etienne, because I know I'm having such a wonderful impact on these kids' lives. And like, just even doing like cannabis related research. I mean, we're at the front end of, this weed thing, stigma going away to where we could actually do legitimate research at the college and university levels, and it be supported by our national institutes of health. And, it's like still to the point where money that was already allocated through national institutes of health funding has been stopped. We heard back in late August that our grant for our Vermont Biomedical Research Network, through which I get funding, have received their notice of award. So thank you very much for all that pressure that people put on RFK. As it turns out, this wasn't even money that wasn't, this was money that was already allocated, and it was held up in the courts, but ultimately all those institutes and research hospitals and cancer studies that so desperately rely on all of this NIH funded funding were actually now awarded their contracts again. So all that research has been turned on, which is just wonderful news. So thank you. If anybody in our audience reached out to their senators or representatives when I pleaded with you so to do so a couple months ago, thank you if you did that.
Well, it's
I think
very
I would like
important.
to, oh, go ahead, Etienne.
In a sense, what you were talking about, a few things. First off, originally in BPG, when we were hiring, remember, we're turning 26 years old next month, right? So thank you very much. We didn't hire very educated people. We hired activists in the sense because early on, we were all expecting to get arrested. And I could not take somebody who was a doctor and willfully, put them through the paces with any chance of getting arrested, right? Every single day, right? Nobody really wanted to kind of take that risk, wanted to go that necessary extra mile. And that changed in 2009, right? When the Cole memo, because that kind of gave normalization in the sense that we were allowed to be our little 10th Amendment realities. And that's when we hired and brought people in. And that's when I started teaching at Oaksterdam University, right? My friend Richard Lee, rest in peace, saw the need because why? There was no, at the time, secondary education about cannabis. And because there was no secondary education on cannabis, it it made our jobs as dispensary people harder because I mean, when we hired you, you spent a week just getting educated before you even went to your job. That is how much history and information around laws and what you were going to experience that we had to fill in people's heads before they even got to even deal with a patient, before you started to look at the Cannabibles and the Great Book of Buds, which were always kept in the break lounge. So at any time you're on your break, you could finger through and look through these genetics. But we were going through enough genetics and turnover at the time that people became quite educated on the genetics and talking directly to the patients, right? And getting that feedback, helping them understand, because we were really reliant on a feedback loop. And our main point of education was the bud tenders, right? And so now there's multiple schools, there's even universities that have, and now there's the American Nursing Association now recognizes cannabis nursing as a specialty. So these are things, thankfully, due to our friends and other people who were like, hey, well, there aren't education manuals about science and nursing. Oh, well, I have to write them. Oh, well, I know a bunch of people do. We'll all contribute chapters. And now we've got an entire compendium and multiple books now just on cannabis nursing as a specialty. Why? Because what we were doing as bud tenders and that anecdotal as well as that feedback loop that we were getting from patients applications is now being used as a real science. Now there's specific understanding of medical uses and needs and expectations, and now efficacious medicines available to them, right? And so it's a constant evolution of seeing what we were missing, right? Especially the education component, and now seeing it start to be where there's specialties now in cannabis science and research, right? That, and even awards, right? You yourself,
Mhm.
Dr. Sheldon,
Mhm.
those types of things did not exist when you were an undergraduate or even
No.
as you became a doctor to a certain result for cannabis, right? They were all very hush hush and research, but even you now have patents in
Yeah.
a way and a form and businesses now that can really change the mindset through science, through direct science. It's no longer our anecdotal feedback loop. It's
Mhm.
real, replicatable, duplicatable science that is unfortunately still not 100% there, because as we know, even the testing standards from state to state are its own thing. But we're getting there, right? It's still a step
Yeah.
by step process, right? Colin, for you, right? From where we started even a decade ago, from, carts with wicks to now, there's not a wick in a cart to save your life, right? It's a constant evolution that we are reliant to people and feedback loops, as well as to people like, Stephen Pillpot, who just joined us, who is, doing direct research on PTSD and the brains, and helping just the science understand anandamide levels, right? Stephen is helping science and TBIs understand why anandamide levels are important, aren't you, Stephen? Well, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to the conversation that was being had, Dr. Mark and I have definitely talked about this. You have to meet people where they are.
What's up, Stephen?
Um, Hey, so like if I'm talking to a biologist, I'm not going to start talking to them about cannabis first. I'm going to talk to them about basic biology because I know that's their specialty. Now, if during that conversation I can start explaining to them, like, hey, you know how 35% of FDA medication is made to target G protein couple receptors? Okay, CB1 and CB2 are G couple protein receptors. And they're like, oh, well, I already understand that class of receptors. So now I'm not teaching you anything new.
Okay.
It's just a new way of telling them. At the end of it, then you tell them, hey, cannabis actually interacts with the system. But if you don't lead with it and you lead with their specialty, you almost like walk people into their own education.
Another thing that I wanted to mention in here is that, there's no doubt, Mark, that you're an extraordinary teacher, and that's why people are left and your
Oh,
students are
thank
left
you.
with a feeling of learning something because you spark something in them that makes them want to learn. Now, I can't totally back the educational system right now as extraordinary. I think that there's extraordinary individuals in the education system. I do actually believe that, unfortunately, the whole NIH and the pulling of funding and everything became so political. But in all honesty, I would really like for our education, Etienne, you said it from the very beginning. Children don't even know how to walk around in a field and know the difference between a plantain and a clover. These are very basic educational components that actually drive our intelligence because we're a frequency, we're plugged into nature. If we're not even learning some of these basic things, a perfect example was running a clinic. I've run several clinics throughout the world. And we always get doctors, and we always will get the very best doctors from all over the world. And they have to come for 3 weeks, because less than 3 weeks, they're not truly plugged in. It takes about 3 weeks. And I have the best surgeons from Vanderbilt and, Harvard's very best doctors of biology and all of these things. But when they get down to Haiti and they're in our clinic, there is an unbelievable, dare I say, ignorance to understanding true health. Monty Python does that funny thing about, the doctors always talk about the machines that go bing. Like these doctors that are the most renowned in their field can't even use very basic, maybe touching a belly to understand where a baby is without an ultrasound, without all of these things. So there's something that's happening in our basic educational systems that's leading us away from our intelligence that will help drive us towards health and wellness. A lot of those funds that were taken away in NIH, I really want to know, like, are they going to be towards health and wellness? Like, okay, we're funding more and more science and we're funding more and more things and more educational programs, but are we healthier as a society? We are not. Are we getting better at dealing with nature in a way that's stopping fires? No, it's not. Are we using up all of our water? Yeah, we're still throwing terrible chemicals everywhere, but it's all in the name of education. So I'm really here to just really question that. And I feel like I can do that. I have all these degrees from several different universities, and I don't feel like I got my education until I left those. Of course, there was amazing teachers that taught me and seeded something that made me want to go out and learn more. But wasn't until I left those walls that I actually became educated. So I'm believing that people can become educated outside of those walls, without the debt, without coming back from feeling like you're getting the ultimate education and your parents and your grandparents and everybody put in, and they all, went to work for all of this extra time to make sure that this child was able to go through and get an education. And I know that that was what happened in my family. And okay, great. You come out with a ton of debt and now you got to pay it off. And thank God for cannabis, because that's how I paid off my debts in university. It was swinging cannabis on dead tour. That's how I paid for university. And thank goodness that I had that as an outlet. But it's just bringing back this idea of, what is it feeding? I feel like the education is taking away more than what it's giving at this time. So it's just an interesting topic. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, education, I think, is what you make of it, and especially the years that you spend at that age. I think it's about what you put into it and what you get out of it. And some kids are adept to it and some aren't. And some are lucky and are able to find that career path, and some can go in completely different directions, to your point.
Steven's got his hand up after you, Colin.
Yeah, sorry, good.
I was just gonna say, from somebody who's like in the education system, um, but also like I grew up in Chicago public schools. So like as a kid, I was very aware that like your teachers will walk out and leave if they're not happy, and go on strike. So as a kid, you're not in class like thinking about whimsical education. You're like, this is where my parents drop me off when it's time for them to go to work. So like I had a 1.8 GPA in high school just because of stuff that was going on in my household. Didn't like school. The military to me, going to the Marines made more sense than going to college. So that's obviously what I did. However, once I went overseas and the world got bigger than it was when I just lived at home, then I had a shit ton of questions and I didn't know how to get those answers. So to your point, education provided a path for me specifically for me to go, hey, there's a ton of opinions that are public, and there are only more opinions being thrown at you public. Most of our kids can't cipher through what's real and what's not. And the one thing, maybe not school as an institution does, but the scientific method makes you question things down to its fundamental separate from humans. That's always the point of our research is we have to make sure that this is what's happening separate from a human's influence on the trial. And I think you don't really get that curiosity in a lot of places outside of education. So I understand your point. the institutions themselves are very much different from the opportunity that they can provide. Like you said, certain people, after having certain experiences, will go through there and have like, hey, this is a topic in the world that I want to focus on, and I'm going to make the world better doing that.
Yep.
But 90% of the students that are there are almost like robotic. I got to get this degree because society said I got to get this degree. And they don't really know it until they get a job. And somebody in the chat said most people who got those degrees aren't even in that field anymore.
100.
I think that's both sides of like, yes, it's beneficial, but also they don't really tell people to like, whenever people ask me to be a mentor, I'm like, what's the problem in your community that you want to solve? Because that's what you should probably go research. Anything else, you're going to burn out or you're going to look up one day and hate your research. You should probably look at something that you actually care about. I want to help veterans, like Etienne said. I'm a veteran. I know that that's something I can research where, regardless of what happens with the funding and the federal government, if I can help one veteran at a time, that science is worth it, in my opinion.
Well, it's also affording that education, right? I had joined the National Guard because I could not afford. I grew up poor. My parents could not afford, nor did they think enough of me to save money for me to have a secondary education. So I joined the military back in 1989, right when the Berlin Wall was, falling, thinking, hey, I'm just going to do 4 years, because again, that really uncomfortable and fucked up time in society between 18 and 21 in the United States, right? You're legal to join the military, but not legal enough to drink, right? For me, I'm very rare in that sense. I was the last one grandfather in it. However, that 18 to 22 is a very dangerous time in life. And where I grew up in southern Louisiana, there was no real apprenticeship besides, welding and working offshore. And I literally got washed out of working offshore my first time out. I literally got thrown overboard by a rogue wave and was like, fuck water. And that's why I joined the army as opposed to the Navy or Marines. I couldn't handle the water. I'm a land loving motherfucker. Um, but through getting that, you know, I inadvertently found myself in combat and in war, right? Because I just wanted a secondary education. And it was even mocked because I was like, hey, I just wanted a secondary education. I wanted the experience, wasn't expecting war, but wow, what an education and world traveling that was, right, Stephen? Into changing your perspective and understanding, where you are in the world and what you're told and what your media and your friends have been told, and then what you see physically on the ground yourself in a combat zone, as well as come to understand. And just to give you some perspective, I'm going to rant here for a second. My war was Desert Storm. We were told that the big boogeyman of Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and so we needed to go free Kuwait. And so we were like, oh, we're going to go liberate a democracy. That's what we were told. Okay. And when my ass got over there and got on the ground, I found out that, oh, Kuwait's a monarchy. Not only is it a monarchy, they have on average of 19 Iraqi slaves per household on average. Oh shit, mind blown. So then I was like, oh well, Saddam Hussein, bad guy, he invaded Kuwait. Well, why did he invade Kuwait? Well, inadvertently, not conspiracy theorist here, George Bush Sr. owned an oil company called Zapata Oil, and Zapata Oil did what's called slant drilling. Are you familiar with what slant drilling is, boys and girls? Well, if you've ever seen a movie, I Drink Your Milkshake. Yeah, that's basically what they did. They slid into Iraq's milkshake and started sucking on it and got caught. And Saddam's like, fuck you, and invaded. And of course, George Bush Sr. was like, oh no, we can't have that. We have to go liberate them, right? See how this works, people? Right. So things you learn on the ground that you necessarily weren't understanding. And then when I tell the people I even serve with that we fought in a war over oil, they get mad and angry, and I get ostracized for speaking the truth because I had to live under oil fires for an extended period of time because Saddam said, well, fuck you. You want the oil? Burn this bitch. And literally, I've seen hell on earth. Got pictures, 8x10 glossies even. It's fucked up shit nobody should ever see. So that's just one person's journey just to get a secondary education. And then while I was in my sophomore year of college, after I came back from war, ATN was using his medical marijuana. And on the day of him getting his promotion to sergeant, I had a positive piss test for urinalysis for THC and was kicked out of the Army. And then the next day, when I went to go to college, my professors had to escort me off campus and say, oh, your GI Bill's been pulled. You don't get your secondary education anymore. So, that's just my little bitter journey as a cannabis patient who would then go to the VA and say, hey, this medical marijuana is saving my life. I was wasting down. I have what's called Desert Storm Syndrome or Gulf War illness. And I wasted away to 98 pounds, and I was dying, and nobody knew why. And cannabis stimulated my appetite and saved my life. And so I used it because it was saving my life. And that became my journey inadvertently. So, yeah, I'm a funny guy in a funny hat, but we have, and each one of us have fascinating stories on how we got here and why we chose cannabis as our medicines. And that's just my small journey of just wanting to get a secondary education. And that sparked my journey into now being, a cannabis pioneer. So you never know where your journey starts. How's that for fun?
I love it. I appreciate it. I appreciate your journey,
Love you,
Etienne.
Etienne. Thank
Love you,
you.
Etienne. Thank you. Thank you for taking
And you, Steve.
your hardships and turning it into a much easier path for so many thousands of people. You've really taken a lot of what has been difficult for you, and you have paved paths for other people to make it easier for them. And it's very obvious in every breath that you take. And anyone who knows you knows that this will be, what you will do until you take your last breath. And people like you are rare on this planet Earth. Thank you so much.
Humble
Yes,
enough,
brother.
people.
It's time for a big old dab of some
I'm
Planet
like
Bang Bang.
really enjoying this forbidden banana that we
Ooh, look at that lime greenie.
is super crystally, super
What
nice.
makes it verboten?
Forbidden.
Yes, verboten.
That's in German. Yeah.
True. No, that's
It's
true.
because it's cannabis, and we were
forbidden
just talking
fruit.
about that.
And it does have a forbidden. It does have like a fruit, very much so a fruit punch flavor to it, and it really comes through with a little gassy undertone. Like Colin, I also learned a lot about the VA through my father as well, and all of my dad and both of his brothers from Oakland, California, were all three drafted into the Vietnam War. All three brothers, like, wow, okay, all three of them, okay.
Damn.
Luckily, they didn't go to Vietnam, so that my dad was stationed in Korea, and he had this like sweet experience over there, and they were shipping LSD in the mail back and forth, and weed and opium and stuff, getting opium from Korea. So they ended up staying wild, if you will.
Nice.
But also, my dad always really talked about his experience. Like he had a rough childhood growing up in Oakland, and then moving to Southern Oregon in high school, like as a California kid from the Bay Area, like 1967, moving into Southern Oregon. It was like, greasers versus Soch kind of fights and cars and the whole thing. But, and then I was raised in that, where every single one of my family members and men had always gone to war. I think it's just the way it is, you know what I mean? And then my parents kind of became like, well, what happened over there in Vietnam? And then they started going like, I like being like a hippie and like with weed and starting to be connected to the earth, you know what I mean? So that I'm born in Southern Oregon in this era of well, you can be a revolutionary and live out in the woods and like grow medicine. You know what I mean? Like we brought seeds back, you know, like we learned some shit over there. It wasn't just about war, you know, we learned about like medicine and bringing weed back. So I think I got like inoculated into the concept like I'm kind of like a frontlines warrior type thing, but that you know that chose not to go to war. You know, and so I broke that one chain of like, okay, so but I dedicated myself like almost like that same type of focus or like to just being on this path that we've lived. And so it was I feel like you know maybe that's luck or maybe it's whatever it is you know but and just respecting all like paths in life and where you come from like I didn't come from a lot either you know I came from like minimal and then it was just like oh I'm just like
When
no
minimal was enough.
it was just enough it was just enough to grow a garden that
We
I met
didn't call it
first.
minimal.
What's that?
We didn't
No,
call it
he
minimal.
wouldn't do it.
It's
What's it
just
called?
minimal now.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point of when we say like your world expanding. So I always joke with people. I'll be 35 in less than a month. As a millennial, I remember very much growing up without the internet. I remember when we got our first answering machine, and that expanded communication with the outside world. Then we got cable television when I got older. That expanded communication with the outside world. So as you continue to expand, now your world is way bigger. So now you're comparing something that you didn't know was minimal, drinking out of your neighbor's fire hose, when you were outside playing. But now you can see the rest of the world and you have a comparison. So now your labeling is minimal. And I think that's one of the big issues with social media is that comparison of things you used to be okay with, likely would be fine with if you didn't constantly have a measuring stick being like pointed in your face.
Yeah. Dr. Mark, is that a ES 335, bud? Yeah, going on there. You playing an acoustic now?
Oh, me? No, that's the
Yeah.
Epiphone, right?
Is that a 335?
Well, it's the Epiphone. It's the Casino, right? This is John Lennon's guitar from Revolver, right?
Geez, what did you
So
pay?
it is
Like
a hollow
17
body.
million for that John Lennon guitar?
It's definitely
Oh no,
up
it's
there.
the John Lennon. I'm just saying it's that
It's John
same.
Lennon's, you know, the one he played on Revolver.
It's the same model.
I know, I'm joking. It sounded awesome. Trust me. I was like, holy shit. Just come in with a $17 million guitar. Yeah, I bought this one at auction. Patents, hydrogenated cannabis patents are doing really well.
No.
I'm I'm crushing it. I love it.
This is 1 of 10.
Can you
Man,
hear
it's
it?
I can feel I can feel it. I can hear it and feel it.
You play us something, buddy.
Should I play some? I saw it that I couldn't play loud enough, like it wouldn't come through. I don't know. Let me see. You hear that?
Not really. It's funny because like it could the new microphones
Oh,
they
we
do
did this before, yeah.
Yeah, we
compression.
tried this. I even tried this with my brand new internet microphone. Now it just doesn't work, and
You need a flat
like
mic. These new mics are, the worst part is, I think it is, Dr. Sheldon, it's a Zoom setting.
It is
Um,
a Zoom
yeah,
setting.
yeah, it's a Zoom setting for the audio, and unfortunately, this isn't a very audio built platform. It's very much visual, unfortunately, and the new
yeah.
mics definitely spark it out. Yeah.
No, it's just really difficult again to even get it real time. Like I was playing for someone, and they were like, "Oh, I could hear like every other note," and it's like, "Oh." Even with the a really well, I don't say it's a really good mic, but I got one of these, like one of these official USB mics.
Yep.
I mean, supposedly that was going to solve the problem and the delay and all that, but no. there's no substitute to being in the room. It's basically what it comes down to.
True story. Well, I'm looking forward to the winter coming here soon. We'll get a bit of fall to deal with, which is great because it's foraging season. I'll pick so many different kinds of mushrooms all around my property, left, right, and whatever direction I go. They'll be producing, and then the snow will fall in November, and I will begin my annual obsession with the snow and the mountains, being
When are you
outside.
back in Quebec next, Mark?
I'll probably go there in a couple of weeks. In about
Okay.
14 days, I think I'll be back in
Yeah,
Quebec, so I'll give
let's
you a
connect
text.
offline on that. We'll see if Brian could make it. But Colin, let's get it dialed in. Let's road trip to Canada. What are we doing here?
Let's do it. I'll come over there, Brian. Yeah, get Brian up.
Yeah, we'll get like all four of us to come up,
That'd be fun.
or three of us, but get all four of us together, and that'd be something else, right?
I'd love to
That
go
would
to
be pretty cool,
Canada.
actually. That would be probably a Montreal thing. We would not want to be staying in the little village township that I was staying in at the same hotel. We'd probably want to go into Montreal and do it there.
Okay.
Whatever. It's like about an hour and a half away. So
Yeah, exactly. Montreal is it's less than 2 hours, I think, for you to get to Montreal.
that's right. Yeah. Some people actually like if they fly, like you could fly from Burlington Airport here in Vermont, but typically, like if you're flying like to LA, that's easily $100 or $1,000 US round trip. But flying round trip to Montreal is only like about half that price. So it's kind of like, if you want to drive a little bit farther across the border and fly into Montreal, has just got a lot more one way. If you fly in and out of Burlington, you're going to connect somewhere probably. So
Yeah,
if
of
you like
course.
to fly one way, uh, and so I know a lot of people who do that.
I bet. It's probably a thing. Plus the value of your money in Canada is obviously, you're gaining that 35 cents on every dollar.
Might as well. I know that the businesses on this side of the border, Marcus, are like really seeing a drop, like this summer in particular. We see them all the time. In fact, I was gassing up at the Costco today, and behind me, in front of me, two Quebec license plates.
Mm.
So I know that
Well,
they
they
come.
did destroy our economy here in the last few years, so it's Canada's been hit pretty hard in the sense. I know like it seems like there's less Canadians traveling in the world.
Yes, yeah. Well, the border towns, like in Vermont, there's St. Albans and Newport are definitely seeing like a downtick. Like a lot of their Main Street, restaurants were, like it or not, Canadians come over with money and they want to spend. And those were important, just waiter, waitress, dishwasher jobs, cook jobs. I mean, those people need a tourism income, and the border towns in particular get really hit hard because I think Canadians are pretty willing to come to the U.S. and spend their hard-earned dollars down here. But
Well, it's just that they don't have any hard-earned dollars to spend. It's not even that. Like
yeah,
if it worked the other way around, I promise you this, if Canadian dollars gave you $1.30 to $1.40 if you went to America, you would see so many Canadians down there. It would be absolutely like it's all based on the value of our dollar more than anyone's politics or anything else. They're just there's Canada's been utterly ripped a new one for our economy. It's pretty
right. So can we
pretty
assume that the
shitty.
Canadians that do come over in this environment are probably well-to-do and have
I would say
money?
so. They're ones not being affected by it. It's only probably, I don't know, maybe 70 or 80% of the country. I'm sure there's probably a solid 20 that are completely unaffected you know, by this. It mostly affects, the middle class and the lower class, Those are the classes that are getting utterly, well, it's just like I drove by a 49-year restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants in West Vancouver the other day, and it's gone. Now, I can't say that they went bankrupt or anything, but they're definitely gone. They're not, they're not doing it anymore. There's tons of restaurants in our city of Vancouver that have gone bankrupt, that have gone out of business from just the hurting economy. Seems like it happened pretty consistently after, like shutting down the whole world for a couple of years there was pretty intense. Nobody really knew how it was going to affect everybody, and different people were affected differently by it. Young people that were in high school and they were affected a certain way. People who were working jobs were affected a different way, but it definitely had a big effect here in Canada. There's no doubt about
Well, and
that.
some restaurants, to be quite frank, Marcus, they just can't can't keep employees because who sees a future making minimum wage? It's like you can't say, hey, I could, advance in this job or something like that. It just it's difficult for small mom and pop kind of restaurants and things to stay alive economically when yeah.
When we're all subject to being a slave of our money, it's like, oh, I want to support the local camera guy down the street in Vancouver, but he's selling cameras for literally $1,500 more than I can buy them off the fucking the Brooklyn crew there, BH Photo, right?
Right.
Like those motherfuckers are buying $100 million worth of shit at a time. They sell shit cheaper than Canon, cheaper than Nikon, cheaper than Sony. I'm like, what the fuck? So I end up buying my camera equipment from them because I didn't want to pay twice as much from the local guy just because so I inadvertently helped put that guy out of business. Every time you shop on Amazon, you literally, it was kind of like, it's not always a bad thing taking out a good thing, like I saw it with, like, when I saw Hillary Black start the Compassion Club, she inadvertently had no idea how many mom and pop dealers she was putting out of business. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't her intention to put mom and pop dealers out of business, but when she opened that club and and it became such a focal point, and so many people were like, no, this is a good thing. It became like, this is who we're supporting, this is where we're going. And all the people around that were kind of like paying their mortgage and doing a little bit of this on the side, that shit dried up. So that was kind of the first voice of people I heard that weren't stoked on the Compassion Club. I was like, how could you not be stoked on the Compassion Club? It's like, "Arr." It's like, well, yeah, but Hillary's not profiting. So she may have taken your profit, but she gave it back to the people who were suffering in the first place. So that's pretty righteous.
Yeah, I mean, free enterprise always has that issue that it can be beneficial to the masses, but often ends up being, drained into someone's bank account, and you don't you can't quell the opportunity because certainly, like even in cannabis, a lot of people get in because they think that, oh, we're going to make money. Like my weed dealer always had a nice car or something like that. Like all of a sudden it's going to be the loaves and the fishes and I'm going to make a ton of money. Yet I don't know if you've seen this, but every once in a while the MJ Biz Daily will take a snapshot of all the publicly traded, these are obviously Canadian companies, right? And
Mhm.
show their numbers, and they're all in the red. Every single one of them. There's only like one multi-state operator that's a public corporation in the cannabis industry today that's in the green. I think it's Green Thumb, GTI. I think every other company, they're all in the red. And it's like, oh my God, is selling weed that much unprofitable that these companies are running in the red constantly and basically taking money from shareholders and not delivering on, what their business targets are in terms of profit? I mean, I don't know. Just seems like it's these companies are kind of like Ponzi schemes. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Well, maybe not, maybe so. Um,
Maybe so,
yeah.
maybe not. Hey, let's write a song.
You had your
Maybe
guitar out,
so,
dude.
maybe not.
Oh my gosh, that one's been written.
Yeah, it
That one's
has.
been written.
It has. But am I the only one who thinks like this? I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like, how do you not make money selling weed, growing
Well,
and producing
It's
cannabis?
prohibitionist dollar signs. They're all living off of they're all living off the idea that we're still making $6,000 a pound, and they forget that farming is a race to the bottom. And the rest of
Yes.
the
I
world,
mean, look,
every
I
other
think
agronomic situation, it's a race to the bottom.
the
yeah.
most expensive part about cannabis, Dr. Mark, is the cultivation aspect, right? And I think that's where most do not know the true cost per pound. They have a rough idea, but they may not nail it. And I think that's a trickle down that sometimes flows into the lab where they don't know because like whatever reason. But I think Marcus said it earlier, like, you have to really understand the difference between just making hash for fun as a hobby and making it into a business. And it becomes, a blend of different disciplines. You know what I mean? I think that's really that most sometimes don't have in their teams, and some rise and some fall due to those things. Not everybody can be good at everything. Takes a
Well,
real
it
village.
just makes me think that the whole publicly held thing is just a Ponzi game, but there are profitable private companies that make money in the business and are able to, again, vertically integrate to where even fluctuations within the market
Yeah,
or, having, again, kind of, the grown to a certain critical mass, Colin,
yeah,
where again, yeah, the most expensive piece of that, I think, what were we just talking about? I forget, maybe it was 18 was mentioning, is the human capital piece of it, right? And again,
that's
it goes back to the original premise of the conversation, which is that if you're only making 15 or $16 an hour, it's difficult to commit yourself to, hey, you know what? I could do this for 30 years of my life and actually, raise a family and buy a home and, achieve the American dream. It's like there's so much um I don't know what do you have to say? I mean, like right now, I mean, when you go to the grocery store, shit, everything's expensive. We just bought 91% alcohol. Just a bottle this big is like $6. Shit, just like 2 or 3 years ago, that same bottle was like $2. Now it's
right.
like $6. It's like there's just so much inflation and so much pressure again on every value chain and every supply chain. I think ever since COVID, ever since those, days when you go in and there'd be no toilet paper at the grocery store. Now I think everything is more expensive, right? I'm sure it's not just me. I mean, I did the grocery shopping for my household, and we're just two people, just myself and my wife. My daughter occasionally comes over for a meal or two. But even just like us, groceries for a week is like $250. And I look at like what I took away from the store, Colin, was like 3 or 4 bags of stuff. It's like your dollar doesn't go as far as it does, and maybe again that's just a sign of the times.
Yeah,
Again, someone was saying in the chat about tariffs. I don't know, are tariffs really affecting like
yeah,
grocery prices?
yeah. They think it affects everything. I mean, it affects like everything, even on the can.
But grocery prices like tripled before tariffs were even a thing. Like at least here in Canada, for sure.
Well,
Like
during
for
COVID,
sure.
right around
During
COVID,
Yeah,
COVID.
but it never went back down, dude. They just kept it up there.
right,
They just say supply chain issues.
Yeah,
That's what they
right.
call it. They said COVID for a while, and then that changed to supply chain issues. It's the
yeah.
ultimate excuse. It's like, damn,
Well,
so
that's what's like
much
happening
is
now with like,
fucking $12 for a bar of butter.
hardware and packaging. It's like, oh, well, it's delayed, you know what I mean? Jars. I mean, but Dr. Mark, like something he said about GTI, like that guy, those guys that run that, it's like it's the Hennessy family, basically. So they've been like positioning themselves since like
Right.
the very beginning in ways that like a lot of people are just now starting to think, right? Because they have a brain trust and a deep knowledge of how to do CPG in a way that is just advanced, you know, and to them, this is just another product, right? And that's the reason I see them. And like, if you look at what they did with Agrify, it's like it's insane. It's like they divested this thing out and then they positioned it to go on the stock market. So when it goes federal, they have a vehicle that doesn't touch the planet. It's like it just like when someone sat down and explained all this to me, I just couldn't even believe. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a game that none of us. It's so beyond us that we're playing on a different playing field almost, if that makes sense. And that's why he's so successful is because they have such a large team around them that knows how to move the pieces around.
Well,
You
I
know,
think like if you think about businesses like MedMed, I think that they're a convenient, example of like everything that can possibly go wrong with people at the top that were basically just skimming, beautiful, you know, lifestyles, right? Let's face it, right? These guys like, Bierman and company were basically just like robbing from shareholders. Ponzi scheme, right? The self-enriching Ponzi scheme that again, unfortunately kind of tarred cannabis in a negative way. But like if
yeah,
you just look at the overall profitability just in terms of like what it costs to get a license, what it costs to hire a team to get genetics, and to basically from the ground up build a cannabis production business, you should
yep.
be profitable in just a handful of years. And ultimately, you should be able to create, even in a state regulated market, even a small market here in Vermont, a 10 to $50 million business. Now, I'm just talking about, again, just doing like everything by the book and not needing to basically fluff things up for an acquisition where you're exiting by basically being acquired by some multi-state operator. Just a regular standalone cannabis processing business. I know a few people who got into the Vermont market. We know some common people, right? Don't we, Colin?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and certainly, like if you look at like the California market, for example. I mean, there's just it's so much different when you're producing and there's basically a huge market compared to something like a New England state like Vermont or a small state, smaller states. I mean, Massachusetts, I'm sure is different. Sure, the dynamic in New York is different, especially with all the trap shops down in the city. But still,
That's
I
mostly
mean,
gone. The
yeah,
trap
I
shop,
mean, the trap shops in the city are gone. What?
most of them, yeah.
Oh, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Don't kid yourself there, man.
Most of them, it's all like it's most of them been just shut. It's not like it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's news. I'm looking forward. We're Fish is obviously playing in Manhattan, then Madison Square Garden, 28th, 29th, and
Yep.
my birthday, the 29th, and the 30th and 31st. So we'll be down in Manhattan again, and I'll make sure to give a report back on Hash Church. I don't think that market's gone anywhere. You could still go to a local place, get a copy of the New York Times, get a ham, egg, and cheese on a roll, and get a half ounce of weed. I'm telling you, all you got to do is ask for it. They may not be a trap shop anymore, but there were like smoke shops that were selling everything from Delta 8 to HHC to nicotine products, kratom, all kinds of shit, and
There's always
just
going to
lots.
be the local corner guy doing that's been forever, but like it's not like it was where it's like Kush Bros, like big signs, and it's been
Really?
yeah, it's a different world now. I
Huh? Okay,
spend a bit of time
I'll take
going.
your word for it. I
Yeah,
haven't
no,
been to the city in a year, so I'll report back.
I go down there every week, man. So,
Hey, come to the fish show. What are you doing New Year's
I
Eve,
will,
dude?
dude. I actually we should link. There's a box that
Let's go. Come on
yeah,
now.
we'll have to get linked up. But I'd love to see you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's go. Come on.
But yeah, like I don't know. I think like I'd like to see this all go back to like what you're talking about to me is like a single operator, like guys like us that like we've done a lot of different things and we got some friends around us that are super talented and we could all bring it together and be like, manage a simple canopy of like maybe, 10,000, 12,000 square feet or something, but like these other guys are running hundreds of thousands of square feet and you know what I mean? It's a different world. I'd like to see it go back to this, you know, smaller world where you could, many producers are producing different varieties and because this idea of this like the large scale, I get why from a financial point of view you'd want to do that, but I just don't see it from a market point of view how it like sustains itself as we see it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but but yeah, like each each market, as Marcus said earlier, like you can get a gram in Michigan for 42 grams for $40. In New York, it's like $90 still, and I can't even believe that, so it's every market to market. And then Maine is a great market. There's a lot of shout out to the growers up there and producers, everybody up there. It's a self-contained thing. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the good thing about, this area, I mean, certainly like New York, Vermont, Maine, yeah, there's been good cannabis tradition here for a long, 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 long time. And even if they try to go Schedule 3, there's nothing that's going to happen to these growers who've been growing up in these mountains forever. And yeah, it's the same thing probably in the Kootenays, same thing in the, you know, Triangle. Yeah, I don't know how the weather's been out in the triangle. We've had somewhat of a drought here. I mean, the lake level here, Lake Champlain is down to like 92.3 feet, which is super low. It hasn't been this low in more than 20 years.
really dry. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's rain in the forecast here once in this next week.
Here, I'll walk out by the lake.
Other than that, it's really dry. So like those people that are growing outside right now, I mean, it's an amazing year. I mean, what a great year on the East Coast. It's dry and
See the
dew
lake in the
point. Dew
background.
point's been a little heavy, like it's been like 26%, but like there are nights that it's like 9. So you get that morning dew. That's a big heavy thing. That's where PM sets in. So
I
those
love
that,
a good morning dew.
yeah, I mean, yes, it is. Likewise.
Okay, can you see the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
Kind of can see it, right?
It's awesome.
Yeah, this is what I'm looking at every day.
Oh, that's
So there's some
terrible.
people fishing off the island here.
Terribly motivating.
I wonder what they're fishing for.
Compliments.
We're gonna lose him. It's gonna switch to his
He went too
Gonna
far
go
away
frozen.
from the
too far away.
Oh
you're too
yeah.
far away from the internet's the internet's like, no, no. There you are. That's gorgeous, Mark.
Okay, now I'm
How'd you
coming back.
find that? eBay? Where
I just painted it myself. It's all
you should
paint by
paint that,
number.
actually, but no, I mean I found my place on Craigslist, oddly enough.
Yeah, no, I think we did find this on Craigslist. Now that I think of it, I think that's right. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Craigslist find.
It's awesome.
Anyway,
So that's
yes.
what you look at while you're working. That's your motivational
Yeah,
viewpoint.
this is my office.
That's
Basically, yeah.
fucking
I got my
beautiful.
instruments over here, got my guitars over there. Got some good artwork here on the wall. I don't know if you can see the artwork. It's pretty inspiring. Let's see, we got dogs over here. These guys want to go out.
They're like, you were just outside. Can we go outside now?
Yeah, can we go outside? Exactly.
We heard the door. P.S. Do you have snacks, Dad?
Dogs are quick too. So good. Those two.
They look pretty happy. Well, I somehow, while sitting on my phone trying to make sure my son wasn't going over his hour of screen time today, locked my own phone and now can't use any of my own apps. But in my defense, because I am the administrator, I have an option that says ignore time limit. But I don't want to ignore the time limit. I want to turn it off completely because every single app on my phone is like, you've used all your time for today. I'm like, damn, how did I do this? This is fucking hilarious.
You dadded yourself out, huh?
I dadded myself out, man. I got all dadded out, dude. I thought I was doing good, and apparently I'm not.
So these are the perils of the new technology of dealing with children.
Must be. It must be. Managed plan.
See, look what you're looking forward to there, Colin.
Speaking of dad, and I gotta roll in a minute. But yeah, no, I know, man. It's like, what are you using, like Opal or something? Like, I have a friend, bunch of my friends that play music, they use this app called Opal that'll just like lock them out of their apps to help them like focus.
Oh yeah.
So they don't like get sucked into whatever when they're doing
The
whatever.
phone does it by itself. You can do it with the phone without an app.
Really?
Oh,
So
really?
creatives are using blocks for themselves so they don't affect their creative or focus their creative energies. Wow, I hadn't thought of that.
I used to do that all the time, but like I'd turn the internet off on my computer, like if I was working on a workstation, and then I would take my phone and put it in another room and turn it off.
Right.
And that way, there's no excuse other than to be present, you know?
Totally. Well, listen, you guys, I'm also going to cut it a little shy today, but I definitely want to thank you guys for popping in on me. I did a 35-minute monologue this morning. It was pretty fun. I got to talk about the history of water hash by myself in the room to Closet Grower, I believe it was. But yeah, I want to thank Puffco, who has released a new proxy. Hopefully, we'll have that in hand sooner than later, and we'll all be puffing on one of those, enjoying that. Shout out to the Press Club for all their support as well. Both of those groups have been wonderful sponsors for Hash Church, as well as Bubble Bags, which Mark Rose did mention in the chat room, have been slashed. I think the prices are literally 50% of what they were. So go check those out. Everything is still the same in regards to the quality, just a little bit cheaper. And may the full mount bless your bowl sooner than later. I'll say to everyone watching, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and we'll talk to everyone later. Peace out, everybody.
Everybody.